All right, it's test 1 2 1 2. I think we're online here. It's 10:10. For those of us that are here and have we're coffee powered and we're connected, I think we're okay. We're gonna start slowly. We got 10:15, but we got a little 5 minutes here to kill. One of the things that's interesting is from yesterday. We shared a lot of information and some of the little workshops that we had, our little working groups, and we got some interesting, how do you say, insights. And this is what the ICI is doing. And for those of you that it's your first time, definitely appreciate what you share and then what you hear. And this is what this whole idea of ICI is. One of the things yesterday is we had. I showed Mike McCormick from the unceded territory of Wikwemkong, his little data center. And this is what it looks little, but you see the size of it. But this is also like data sovereignty. And you see where it's housed and the location. One of the things for a lot of, for us and here in North America, especially in northern communities, fire is a real concern. And this is for our infrastructure. How do we address that, and some of the things that are never answered or never questioned? I live in a little rural area and I have trees around me, and when I heard the fires, first thing is like, yeah, I look at my house, I look at the infrastructure, and I have an open area. And one of the things I considered was I was looking at a sea container, like you see those shipping containers you see on oceans. They're like 20 feet and 40 feet. I was looking at purchasing one, and the reason why is that when fires burn, they burn like crazy, and they throw off a lot of infrared radiation. And anything in its path or close proximity, anything that burns will definitely burn. So what I was looking at, this is my crazy thinking, is that I was looking at a shipping container because I have maybe about a 1/4 acre of open area, and I was thinking of putting, if there was a major fire that was coming, I was thinking of putting all my belongings from my house into that area because I have a little log home kit, and putting it out in the open so far enough so the infrared radiation doesn't get it. And I was talking with Michael. Part of the discussion too is says, yeah, you could also bury it. So these are the kind of things that happen, and we've seen a lot of the communities what's happening with the fires. So Felici, there's the book. Felici is our technician over there. He's been very cooperative, and I appreciate our audio and sound. There's something that if you get a chance, this one, fire weather. If you get a chance, pick it up, look at it. You can do it online or just see the review. What's curious about this one is like what happened in Fort McMurray. Fort McMurray was leveled, a good portion of it, and one of the things was you could only go one way in and one way out. After this fire, they really looked at it something differently. But in there is, when you read it, is what happened to the infrastructure that was there? What happened to their connectivity infrastructure? You don't hear that. And this is what I would be looking at, or this is what I was asking. What happened to all that infrastructure? And it became more apparent after this, in gathering with every one of you here. What happened to their infrastructure, or the little infrastructure that they had? Was it above ground, below ground? How much of it was affected, and how much of it is operational? Those are some of the things that we take for granted, and it's never asked. Are they able to communicate? And this is a non-Indigenous large community that's in the oil fields. They had to rethink some of their stuff. And these are the things that you're looking at. So if you get a chance to check it out, etc., it's just an aside, or when you have a flight, you need something to read, check it out. But before we start, is like I just wanted to know is like, how vulnerable are we? Every one of us here, we come from Indigenous communities far and wide, and we come from non-Indigenous communities as well, both in the rural, remote areas. And when we look around and we see the fires, this kind of gets us a different mindset and different thinking. So So one of the things that I'd like to ask really quick is I just want a show of hands. How many of you have debit and credit cards? Okay, that's pretty good. And okay, so that's one. That's quite a bit. That's just almost everybody. That's quite a bit. Okay, next question is, how many of you have between $50 and $80 in cash on you? Okay, so there's not very many hands. Okay, Felici, put up the first one there about I think the Roger. There's one about the outage, power outage. There's one here that this one, 2022. Everybody remembers this one. How many remember this one? Oh, all right. Okay. Yeah, we know what happened in there, right? There was an outage. I had a sister that was out in Vancouver and she was there and she happened to, two credit cards. And her hubby had one credit card and they wanted to make a change over there for one of the conferences. And she says something for me. She says, I have to go and get $150. She went to the bank and then that night her hubby wanted to change. They were going to stay a little extra. He went on his credit card and he couldn't get the credit card to change. He couldn't have access because he wanted to change the flight. And she says she had two credit cards. So she says, I'll try the same one that you have. She couldn't, but she got their second one. In the morning, they got up and this is when they found out this is what happened. Many of her colleagues at the conference that woke up that morning, they had, guess what? They had debit and credit cards. Nobody could get coffee. Some of them had cash, a lot of them didn't. And she went to the airport. Similar colleagues, same thing. She says they look pretty worse for wear. Lucky they had their tickets, but they're waiting, but they couldn't get any coffee, couldn't get anything. So one of her friends, she was giving him $50 because the friend was so appreciative. Oh, thank you. I can have a coffee and stuff like that. So, and this one was widespread and there's a report to that. And I think CRTC and stuff, there's stuff out there. So this is some of this, how vulnerable are we? But I think Felici, there's a second one too. There's another one here. And I think this one we can attest to is the Northeast blackout of 2003. You see the map in the corner, how far the blackout was. For here in Canada, Ottawa was blacked out. I live on the other side, and what was funny, yesterday you heard stuff about there's John Perino and Davinda and Brenda. They talk about redlining. This is the first time I like this one. I don't know. I think the redlining in U.S. government, it seems like they use maybe to cross out budgets, you use a red pen, etc. Well, this one here, this was a black line. It was very noticeable. The river between here, between Ontario and Quebec. You go on Quebec, the lights were on and everything, and all of Ontario up to Toronto, everywhere was dark. It was freaky. People on Ontario were sitting on patios on Quebec side looking at admiring how dark it is over there on the Ontario side. But I was thinking of people in Toronto, people in buildings coming down like 30 floors or whatever. They had to come down by stairs and no air conditioning and stuff like that. So some of the vulnerability, but so the question is asked is if you have these systems, how are you backing them up and how are you doing it? So those are some of the questions that I think what's nice here is that every one of you have that. Like here, Davinda, you have Navajo territory, very large, okay? But I think territories like that, Cree territories, whatever, you have these systems. And because of what you deal with and knowing your community and knowing your territory, you have some of that infrastructure. You don't have it all covered, but you do have some of those emergency things. So that's really important to you is like how vulnerable are we and how much do we use? For Indigenous nations, First Nations, we're familiar with not having some of that. So we've made do, but at the same time, when we build things, we build some of those things in with those considerations. So that's the kind of thinking I think that's we're looking at. And these are some of that's coming out in these discussions here. So if you get a chance, check out the book and keep this in mind. Keep this in mind because it went pretty far into the southwestern, the northeastern states. A lot of the power goes over. And there's one thing I think I heard Tricia Toso is up next. They're coming up next. Is I think there's a secondary line that's built in Quebec, Hydro-Quebec, that's going to also send power over the border. But one of the things about that is I think it's sort of like a redundant line, maybe. They're not telling us or we don't know, but if you look online, you get an arrow and look, this is something that it does. Because in the book that was up earlier, the infrared radiation now is scattered by the column of fire tornadoes. Burns intense, like before it would just burn, but now it does a swirl and the amount of IR it throws out is considerable. So you think of towers, some of the lines are aluminum and things like that. They usually melt structures, etc. And if you have a wall, it's hard to visualize a forest fire, but if you've seen one, it's very scary. But then you see the health conditions that you have to deal with, like the fallout in terms of respiratory, etc. So one of those things is that yeah, it involves people and stuff. So this is how we get into the next one: is have we made progress in building an Indigenous workforce and networking? And I think this is happening here. And I'm talking to the students and the students that are, and also the youth, that it's important, and they're seeing the importance of networking, because some of our youth here are making contacts with every one of you and vice versa, and they actually want to go out and visit some of the communities and see what the infrastructure is there and where are the gaps, and the gaps are considerable. So with that, we're going to get Tricia Toso, Peter Leaton, Sichuun, Shawn Yellowbird for Standing Rock Innovations, Nikki Muswaggon from Manitoba, and we got Frank Horn, none other than Frank. He's okay this morning there. I see he's walking up, so he's going to do the moderating. So if you get them, we get you up here. And this is the panel discussion. So how have we made progress in building an Indigenous workforce and networking? So we're doing good. We've seen some of our individuals here yesterday, and some of them are doing dual panels. And one of the things here, everybody is getting comfortable with and we're talking freely with each other. So whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Fred. Nice to meet everybody. Day 3. I've really enjoyed the first 2 days. Lots of conversation. Once again, I've really enjoyed the vibe, what the energies in this room. We're all pretty much on the same page, and I think we have a good sense of where our ultimate goals are for our Indigenous communities on Turtle Island. And I'm always come away from these summits motivated, knowing that I'm not just doing it myself. There's a whole community out there wanting to doing the digital divide is something that has to be tackled, and how are we going to do it? So there's a lot of people here on the same page. That motivates me. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for your energy and your conversations. It's been something that I value very much. So today, the focus is on workforce development, and many of our conversations today will be around that theme. And myself, my role at the ICI is workforce development initiatives. And we work with workshops in community to help wherever they may be on their journey. They might be at square one, or they already have some sort of a network, or they already running an ISP. And if there is some way where we can support them, we have that conversation. We do a workshop, And it's the idea of it is to kind of enhance whatever the agenda is they feel meets their needs. We kind of work with them. And we've had a few this year, and we're planning some for 2026 as well, which is quite exciting. So, but in our conversations, once the ICI came up and running, we realized it's okay to build the network, but what you need is people to manage it. And like every other industry, you worry about once the current people that are doing the work, what happens next once they move on, and that's the big question. I was at an event last year in Calgary, and it was the same question that was asked with the Fiber Broadband Association. Once we retire, who's going to take over all the work? And I remember having that same conversation when I worked with the federal government. We have a lot of people at that retirement age, and how do we replenish? So it's not a unique question, but it does affect us in our work. So with that being said, we have my esteemed panel here, and we'll be asking questions along those lines about where are we at, and where are the gaps, and how can we do better? And is there any strategies that are happening right now, or they will share their thoughts, and at some point maybe we'll bring it to the room to ask questions as well, to have a more full conversation as well. So anyway, without further ado, I'll pass it over to the panelists and introduce themselves. Shawn?
There we go. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Shawn Yellowbird from Musquechee's Samson Cree Nation, and my company is Standing Rock Innovations. Yeah.
My name is Peter Leaton. I'm the CEO of Sichuun, which is a fiber-based ISP in very remote northern Quebec, the town of Schefferville, or the region of Schefferville. The owners of the network are the Naskapi Nation of Kawashikamash, the Innu nations of Matamakash and Lac John in Schefferville area, and also Washat and Manutnam in the Setzil area. We built the fiber network in 2018 predominantly, been running ever since. We've since added an LTE network as well in the area. We have about 10 employees full-time up there, a mix of local people and people that we've had to bring in, part of our discussion today. We do offer a full suite of services, triple play, LTE, like I said. I would argue that it is the best internet in Canada. We essentially have no oversubscription and a pretty nice backhaul, so it works really, really well. So we're looking forward to talking about this today. I would also want to acknowledge all of the youth that have come out today. It's fantastic. So glad to see you guys. Thanks.
Good morning. My name is Nikki Muswaggon. I am the program manager for Manitoba First Nation SchoolNet. I guess we help out 58 First Nation schools in Manitoba with their ICT needs, networking needs. So yeah, we range from like the north to like the most southern reserve, which is pretty nice. We do a lot of work with youth as well, so it's nice to see you guys here. Most of the work that I do is with youth, so it's nice to see you guys here. Welcome, and I hope you guys had a lot of got a lot of valuable information from this summit. So it's nice to see you guys, and welcome everybody.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tricia Toso. I'm here representing Alfred Loon from Eeyou Communications Network. This is actually a map of the ECN network. It's about 4,000 kilometers of fiber optic connecting 14 communities. And they also provide e-services to health, education, and it's aerial, in the ground, and submarine fiber.
Thank you, everybody. So I guess the first question that I'll put to the full panel is, in terms of your workforce that is existing right now, do you have enough to meet your needs, or is there gaps? And where would your gaps be? Shawn?
Hello again. Yeah, to be honest, I believe that there is a lot of untapped resources within communities. My firm belief, at least where I come from, we have four neighboring communities, Ermineskin Cree Nation, Samson Cree Nation, Montana, and Louis Bull. And I kind of liken it to everybody seems to have a backyard mechanic. And a lot of time when you ask a backyard mechanic, like, you know, why didn't you go to school? Why aren't you working? Because you're really good at what you do. A lot of the times I found that they don't know the exact route to get that opportunity. So what we've done with Standing Rock is we've started to learn to focus and tap into the local capacity of the nations themselves. So when our process is a one-year process where we will vet and interview people who are just interested and they've got talent and a drive for it. And once they get through our vetting process, vetting process sounds so official. It's really just dinner and a few interviews. Just sit and get to know them personally on a personal level. Do they have the drive for this? And then after that, we give them 6 months to a 6 months employment to show us what they can do and what they can learn, and do they have the actual drive for it. After 6 months, we end up enrolling them in our local tech college, which is NATE in Edmonton, and we get them a certificate within 6 months. And then by the end of the year, they've got a 1-year certificate and 1 year's experience, and they can get their foot in the door. And I think that's the main challenge is, what is that process? A lot of people are just either too scared to ask or they don't know to ask. So absolutely, to answer your question, I do believe that at least the communities I've worked with, and I've worked with over 10 communities so far, I can count in my head, and each one of them has met that need.
Okay. Peter? Like in terms of your existing workforce,
Yeah.
Are you at capacity or is there gaps? And like in terms of the workforce you have right now, like what would you say about your existing workforce? Does it meet the community needs in terms of what your service you're providing for your community, or are there still gaps that you're trying to kind of bring in a new workforce?
Yeah, so the short answer is there's always gaps, and there probably always will be. There's always room to grow and spaces to fill. I kind of look at it at two different kind of parts. I'm not from that area. I was brought on to help build the network and then asked to stay and run the company. But one of my last goals to achieve is to replace myself with somebody local and develop that capacity to run the company. So from a leadership perspective, there's definitely a gap there, and it takes a lot of effort and a lot of time to develop that in the community. It's hard to find people that are willing to stay with it for a long time and put the effort in to really to grow. When you find them, you hold on to them and you treat them really well, and do your best to nurture them and grow them into that position. But even from just a general workforce level, kind of like management level and technicians level, it's really hard again to find people that want to do that. It's kind of a new area. Most people up there tend to go, either if you're a guy, you're going to be a mechanic or an operator. If you're a girl, you're going to be a teacher or a nurse. That just seems to be the default settings. So trying to show them, look, there's a whole new industry here, a whole new field of employment that we can get you into. It definitely is it's a challenge, and we spend a lot of time in the schools and working with them. We support kids if they're going to go off to college. We're there for them the whole time. We'll give them jobs every summer and make sure they can get back to work for us if they want. But like right now, I said I have about 10 employees. I'm still looking right now, have been for a while, for a senior level, management type level IT person, outside plant technicians. There's always gaps.
Yeah, you touched on a nice subject that it's a new field, and there's probably concerns and things that you have to deal with considering it's a new field. But we'll touch that later in the conversation. So, Nikki, in terms of your existing workforce, in terms of the role that you do, do you lead a team in Manitoba?
Yeah. Yeah, right now I currently lead a team of I have like 150 positions open, which is pretty great. And most of the times I work in the schools. I'm trying to get them to explore, to go out of the schools and like kind of like in the community. So that, because like in the community, like there's most of the organizations in the community don't have the budget to have an IT person in their organization, so they tend to utilize that one that one IT guy. So yeah, no, we let them like reach out to like go work in a community, but it is hard to retain the youth, especially because I work with people between 18 to 30 mainly. But yeah, no, there's like always gaps, and it's just hard to find people. And then like we try and do like we go and talk to the people in the schools about trying a new career because they know that can be scary for them, trying new things. But yeah, no, we try to talk to them and reach out to them to say like just come try it out. And like you never know if you like it or not. Most of the times they started liking it. Our group last year, we had about 50 youth that worked for us, which was great in like 50 different communities. And then half of them went back to school, which was really good stats, I would say, especially for Indigenous youth. But yeah, no, there's always gaps, and especially with working with First Nation youth. That's just for me. I don't know.
Thanks, Nikki. So by the map that I see there for Eeyou, your network, it sounds like in terms of the workforce that you need to maintain that, it sounds like it's quite extensive. Like in terms of that need that you have for the workforce, where are you in terms of meeting the need to maintain that network?
Yeah, of course there are gaps. One thing that Alfred really wanted to emphasize was that we really need to think about the workforce for a network like this in two separate categories. One would be the outside plant. This is the field technicians that are working on fiber installations, repairs, towers, and logistics. And then there's the network operations center, and these are the engineers and IT specialists. Outside plant workforce, ECN has had much more success. You know, they've trained local crews in fiber installation and tower maintenance and logistics, and this allows for a really much faster response in the communities. Whereas with the NOC workforce, this is a much harder challenge. You know, this requires advanced engineering backgrounds, you know, being able to do things like IP networking and redundancy planning, cybersecurity. And so this has been more difficult, you know, to find talent in the communities, but as well as just even recruiting and retaining the staff because they are remote geographic locations. They're quite isolated. There's long travel times. But so currently ECN relies heavily on a small pool of highly trained staff. They have 34 employees at ECN, 8 of whom are Cree working in the communities. JBCCS, the radio broadcasting, they have 15 permanent employees, all of whom have been trained in broadcasting and expert Cree language skills. So yeah, I mean, there are challenges, but they're getting there, yeah.
So you bring up in terms of Indigenous local talent, or people that have the potential, what percentage is there? Do you have enough talent within the communities to be able to meet the needs for your organizations, or do you have to outsource and bring from outside as well?
Well, for the field technicians, it's pretty much local, yeah. But for the NOC, like for then it's they have to recruit from outside of the communities.
Would that be the same for everybody else as well?
Absolutely. We find the same thing that we have a lot better success finding the outside plant guys locally, but the IT type stuff and the NOC stuff, that's definitely more of a challenge. There's very few of the students seem to want to go, you know, do a couple of years in college and come back and do that kind of a job. Yeah, I think we've trained now 6, 7, maybe 8 local people to be splicers. A couple of them still work with us. That's great. They're really good at it too. But we have one student that we followed through. He went to college and went here in Ottawa, actually at Algonquin, and is now working with us. He stayed with us through the summers, and he's now our IT guy. So we're very happy with him, but wish we could have more of that.
In terms of recruitment, then, what's the best strategy that you have found to bring in the talent to work for your organizations? do you have one, or is it like
From out of town, there's not much of a good strategy there. It's, we provide housing and pretty much everything they would need, and try and be as accommodating as we can. But really, honestly, the answer is if you can find someone who's willing to move to Shefferville and live there, we'll teach them the rest.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Just as take advantage of your map. Our community is probably just to the right of your title up there. It's fly-in only. It takes some adapting to live there. It takes a kind of special kind of person to want to be there.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So, in terms of recruitment, all the jobs that you require to work in your organizations, do you require technical skills and the specific training? Is it the only model where someone has to go down south or outside and come back? Is that the typical way to be attain the required skills to work for your organization, or should there be another hybrid model that might work for you to retain new talent or acquire new talent? Like, what's the best way do you think that you do? Are you going to do the old traditional model? Unfortunately, try and hope that someone gets trained downstairs and willing to come up north.
Yeah, I don't want to steal all of the attention here, guys.
Yeah.
No, we found that the best training model for them is to bring somebody up to do the training locally. We have taken groups of guys to Montreal, for example, to do splicing training, and it's fun for them to get out. But realistically, I much prefer to bring somebody into the community. They can see how we work in the community and then adopt the training specifically to that. I've also found that it requires a different model than what these trainers are often used to. I found with our guys, they very, very much want to see and touch and feel things first, and then you can talk about the academic stuff later. Mm-hmm. But most trainers are the opposite. They start with, well, let's tell you the basics, and then we'll let you touch it. And we lose guys before the halfway point of the first day. So we have to kind of restructure the training in a way that will suit their learning style, and it makes a huge difference for them. So just bringing them in, doing it locally seems to be the best approach so far.
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons why we try our model, the Indigenous Connectivity workshops, is where we try and bring the training opportunity in the community, because we're trying to whet the appetite of as many locals to consider this area as a potential career choice. So that's why we're trying to bring, but it has its own challenges of doing it that way, and we're doing our best. But anyway, in terms of, you mentioned retention of good talent. What I've heard too is if someone gets the required skills, they become, other talent, or other organizations can pay better, come and scoop them up, or make offers that are really hard to refuse. And I'm sure, is that something that is a concern with your organization as well?
It's the opposite, actually, because ECN has been recruiting from Talabac and Bell. So,
congratulations.
Hey,
do tell.
Well, actually, the general manager used to work at Telebec. So, yeah, they've been successful in recruiting a lot of staff. But I think, one of the things that Scott Ford of JBCCS said to me when I was talking to him about this was that, when he was hired on sort of a leap of faith. He had no experience at all. Now he's executive director of the radio network. And they just took a chance on him, and they offered training. And when he was being trained, they had to have people fly in. They had to spend hours on the phone and dig through manuals. But today, like, technicians can watch a video and they can get remote guidance. During the 2023 wildfires, he was using AR glasses to be able to guide technicians in remote communities to how to troubleshoot and restore communications. So there's if you have the infrastructure in place, there's a lot of potential just through video conferencing, online courses.
Fantastic. Shawn, do you?
I was just going to add to that when it comes to the retention question. That is actually our main goal. Is I mentioned in my the mentorship program that we have is a 1 year, but they have the option to stick with us. And my first two, we went through the 1 year. Then the first the next two after that, they ended up staying with me voluntarily for about 2.5 years. And then it's gotten to the point where my latest one, and that's the ultimate goal, right? You want them to move on to bigger and better things. And my latest mentor started in January, and we barely got through 6 months, and he was already hired for the First Nation as their IT guy. So it's just it's bittersweet, and you make a plan for a year, and I think my only complaint is now I'm mentorless for until January again. So it's really great.
Lonely coffee breaks.
Yeah, exactly. So that entire just wanting to see them go off and do bigger and better things is definitely a heartfelt thing.
Yeah. So we have youth here, and I'm hoping that you're getting a lot from this conversation to inspire yourself and to see what is possible. So what would you guys say to youth like the ones that are in the room in terms of this field, this career, there's not just one option, there's many options. What would you say to the youth that are maybe even listening as to what the potential is in our field?
Okay, well, what is it? Okay. Well, the potential is immense. There is just so much that you can do. There's always new technologies, so there's always learning. And from what I've seen, both networks, the people are really passionate and they really are excited to go to work, and they're always learning. So yeah, I highly encourage you to think about, going into IT or broadcasting or.
I'll go first. Okay. Well, one thing I would say is don't be afraid to try in a career in IT or telecommunications. It's constant learning. There's always technology is always advancing and changing. So just don't be afraid to learn new skills as you're going along in this career. And just learn off, especially your mentors. They have some valuable information and skills that you can learn off them. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, I just also want to point out that these networks, they take a lot of work to run them, to design them, to build them, to manage them, and there's a lot of different career fields. But it's not just that. There's so many opportunities that come with these networks, the over-the-top stuff. There's no end to the things that you can do in the community once you have that connectivity. So there's if you have the drive and the creativity, the imagination, you could do anything with it. So it's not just to be an IT person for a network, but what else can you do with it now that you have that connectivity? So much room to grow and expand, come up with new things. And there's a big gap in these communities. They don't have that stuff right now, stuff that's available pretty widely other places, and stuff that nobody has yet because you're going to develop it and design it and come up with it yourselves. There's endless opportunity.
Yes. And I guess coming from myself, I feel like more of the grassroots portion here. I would say don't be afraid to challenge and educate yourself and innovate wherever you can. But I think the best part of the human being, being a human being, is what was I going to say here? It was probably my rude one. Oh, yeah, your attitude will take you everywhere. So go into everything with a good attitude and you will go good places.
And great advice. Great advice. Yeah. So I didn't choose to be in this field. I just kind of backed in. And the more I talk to people, it kind of sounds that's more common than I thought. People just kind of, I had a friend who went to a telco. He brought me over, and I always joke that he just caught me on a bad day. I was willing to change, and I went over. But once I stepped in and had these conversations, I realized there's a whole opportunity to help impact. Because what I realized is what we're doing here, it's making impact. It's meaningful, not just for what's happening today, but if you do it right, it has lasting effect for generations. And to me, that's the power and the purpose of the work we're doing. And so, I guess part of our job and one of the things that we're trying to do for the ICS or the summit here is to kind of promote what we are and get as many people to listen in and say, you know what, I want to help out and do what I can and even have a career in this space. Because I'm sure I'm not the only one in this room that just kind of backed into this because I wasn't planning to do this, but I'm happy that I did because I've got to talk to many fantastic people who are motivated and doing great work. And it's like you said, great attitude. And but it can beat you up, but that's okay because the work is most important and it motivates you every day. So I'll get off my pulpit now and say. So in terms of the conversations, is there anything else? I'll probably open up to the floor. Is there any questions from the room? And if there is, I'll have that happen. But in terms of, I guess, the question of retention and making sure that we don't, once this generation of workers in this field, we have the next one. What would you say is probably the best takeaway or strategy that we should consider considering that? Because I'm sure that's a concern that we all have. Is what retention, making sure like how do we make sure we have as many of the next generation to come in to fill in when we move on?
I think it's really actually about network ownership. You know, I think that if the communities own their networks, I think it kind of generates a much more awareness. People want to look after their own infrastructure. And then I also think that, you know, I'm just thinking about in terms of JBCCS, what they're doing. They have this broadcasting network, but they're also live streaming. They've developed all kinds of programming, like Speak Cree to Me. Now they have a puppet show that's in Cree. You know, there's when you have the infrastructure, it just comes like that. All the creativity comes, and I think that makes it a really exciting place. So I think that's really what, you know, what connectivity can bring. You know, is a sense of having a voice and allowing that creativity to flow in the communities, and all the young people that come and bring ideas for the programming. Yeah.
Thank you. So do you have any ideas or takeaways for the room or people listening online in terms of inspiring, so that when the current workforce eventually moves on, how do we inspire the next generation to come in? You're young enough. I think you're part of that generation right now.
Well, yeah, yeah, because I'm part of
I think it's probably continuing doing what you're doing, because it sounds like the fact that you're part of a network and you're connected to over 100 staff, you said, and you're doing meaningful work in schools in the province of Manitoba. Yeah, so like that to me is inspiring, because you have a whole you're making impact within the province, across the province.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. For the youth, I just, you know, I try showcase these careers to the younger generation. I want them to see other youth working in these fields. Like it's nice for them to see like exciting new careers for the younger generation. Most of the times I try to do hands-on stuff like hands-on workshops, and to try to retain them, and just showcasing like, hey, it's like networking is not just sitting on a computer, but like it's like working with like multiple different like wires and just technology. Like it's always changing, so I just try to make it as exciting as I could. But yeah, that's about it.
So I guess first off, 100% support with what you said. Infrastructure in the community is so important, because then you have jobs there, you have places you can see and do and grow with that. So that strong support there. But the other thing is just investing in the kids, investing in training and developing and making them, giving them a place to work where they're going to want to be there. There's always going to be another option. There's going to be the band office or the mine or something else that's going to pay lots of money and maybe be easier work sometimes. But if you make the place, make your network, your company the place everybody wants to be, then they're going to come and stay and invest in them. You know, it's so important to make sure you're putting the effort and time into helping them develop, get to where they want to go, look at what they want to develop, like just not just professionally, but you know, even personally, the things that they want to do, and just make sure you're supportive of their plans and ambitions and push them to where they want to go.
Thanks, Shawn.
Yeah. I guess I feel, I got to say, I feel like I'm kind of the hippie of the group here. I come from a psychology background, but my main passion is IT. And what's kept me in there is a lot of what I believe is going to retain the youth in there. And in my opinion, and I agree with my colleagues here, definitely all that stuff. My belief is that we can teach anyone to plug a network cable into a switch. That's the easy part. The challenge is really looking at the human side of networking, in creating those support groups for the youth, letting them know that, hey, you know what, don't worry about imposter syndrome. I suffered from that to this day, to be quite honest. I mean, like, there's a question of me, like, why am I sitting here up here with these fine folk and talking to everybody here? But there's other people that see stuff in you, and that's what they need to know. And they need to know that there's that group that's going to be there to support you when, say, you got an IT problem and you just don't know, or maybe it's just been a hard day at the network went down and the servers just won't go back up, and it's Friday 4 p.m. You have to go home. When that happens to me, and it's happened, believe me, I had to take that home with me. And but thankfully, I have a supportive group of friends who sit and talk with me about it. And whether we talk about the problem or we just forget about it, it's that human side of networking that will really keep the sanity. So go Team Hippie.
Yeah, I love that what you just said. You know, I'm sure all of us have a bit of imposter syndrome. I'm having it right now, talking to you guys. What's the next question? So, I guess we'll open up to the floor if there's a mic to be shared and moved around. If there's any questions, I know that there's a question in the front here.
Thank you. I'm with Team Hippie. I just want to say thanks so much, the ICI, for this amazing summit. It's really been eye-opening, and I've been hearing a lot of things where industries in these remote communities where people are wearing multiple hats, it sounds like there's a lot of potential for burnout. And so I'm wondering about how you navigate the strategies to help support your staff, especially when there's gaps related to retention and ensuring that they are supported. Are you looking at mental health groups outside to come in to do workshops? Are you looking at some sort of aid to help with your staff? Because, you know, as these jobs can be demanding, we also want to ensure that the employees are healthy and safe. So I'm just wondering what your strategies are around that.
That's a great question.
Well, for me, anyways, for my organization, I've been trying to help out my youth. Just this our last group, I tried to do this like mental health Fridays, like once a month, to see if they need to reach out, because like they're young and they didn't want to look like they didn't want to talk about it with I guess their supervisor who they were working under. I tried to make a group within my like group of interns, I guess that's what we call them, to try to do mental health Fridays at least once a month, to see if that would help with burnout, because I like working in a school, there's a lot of requests for them to like be doing a lot of troubleshooting. So that's just my way. That was just my way of thinking to help them, was just trying to do like a mental health Friday. But I don't know about you guys. You guys do in your organization to try help your employees, but
Did you find that helpful?
they found it helpful.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah, they
actually.
found it helpful. Where I would I don't know, I would let them take a Friday off to Friday afternoon off to go for mental health walks. I don't know if that may help them out, but yeah.
And to go along that same lines, I mean, let's be real here. No, has any IT ever been called into an office to say, "Hey, you're doing the system's fine. Sit down, have a coffee. How are your feet? You need a massage?" No one ever calls for that. It's always the time of crisis. So you end up carrying, some people will end up carrying that energy with you. And then Kathleen, back there, we were just talking about carrying energy with you, the vibe of everything. And when what we ended up doing was the same thing, support groups. I guess in my team hippie sort of way, I come from a psychology background. I've got my Augustana University 2000 honors in psychology, but that more helped me learn myself. So what I end up doing, I only take on 1 or 2 mentors a year. I wish I could do more, but that's the my number for the quality of service that I feel like I can give them. And believe me, there's been many times I've had some of my poor ITs break down because sometimes they're carrying too much, and sometimes it's not even IT wise, it's home life. And so we've taken days where I just say, you know what, the server could wait. Let's go have lunch, and then just take that personal time with them, with either as a group or by themselves. But like I said, the human side of the network is one of those often forgotten sides. And the other thing we did was we created what we call the MIT, the Musquecheese IT group, and it just sounds cool. And it's a close knit community of everybody within Musquecheese that I've worked with, and we just kind of meet every once a month or so, go to BP's, have some pizza, talk shop. Sometimes we just talk, but yeah, that's about it.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I should probably start by saying that my staff they've been practicing work-life balance long before it was ever a thing. I had to adapt and learn from them that their hierarchy of priorities is very clearly family, community, and then somewhere down here we have work. So that's something we just have to work around. It's the way it is in the community, and you know, we do work with that. But we're kind of at that awkward size where we're big for a little company, but we're nowhere near a big company. So we just now brought on our first full-time HR director, and she's looking after a lot of stuff. And one of the things that we're doing, is funny that the timing of your question, she's now looking at, you know, we have a benefits package, but does it really have enough in there for that kind of support? Do we have an employee assistance program? And literally, she's like talking to me about this morning. So it's funny timing, but it is very important that we have that. It is certainly our employees do have a lot of things that they deal with outside of work, and that can have an impact on work. And we take that very seriously. It's part of that, you know, investing and treating your employees properly, and it is a big thing.
Thank you. Is there any other? Do you need the mic?
Yeah, so my question is going to be an AI question, of course. So the godfather of AI, Geoffrey Hinton, has been asked, as other people, about the future of work in an AI-driven world, and always talks about how highly skilled and specialized jobs like doctors, nurses, tradespeople are likely to remain secure because, quote, you'll have to be very skilled to have a job that AI could not just replace. And however, there are traditional white-collar jobs, some digital roles that just could disappear very quickly. At the same time, we have this rapid change of new opportunities can arise. Communities can be positioned to lead or adapt very quickly. So given your deep experience, tech training, workforce development, how do you see Indigenous communities navigating this next wave of job disruption? And maybe where do you see the opportunity?
The question is, like, is there concern that AI will take away jobs, or is that something that you will have to deal with?
So I think if I start, we generally consider that using AI in an appropriate way is a skill in and of itself. Like I'm not really worried that AI is going to take any of my guys' jobs away. but I do want my staff to be able to know when it's appropriate to use AI, how they can use it, what it's good for, what it's not so good for, how to make sure that they're using it and checking it and coming up with good products and results. Like it can definitely save some time. It can do some mundane things that don't need a lot of creative thought and things like that. But it's not ever going to be well. I shouldn't say ever, but for now, it's not something that's going to take any of our guys away. But we do try and teach them to use it as a tool where appropriate, but make sure it's only being used as appropriate.
I follow the same lines. I believe AI is just that, a tool. And I mean, when the analogy I use when I'm talking to my guys, and I've been asked the same question also, is well, you know, did the pencil take away the conversation? No, it's another form of a tool. You just need to know how to properly use it. And just like any other tool, it can be used for bad or it can be used for good. However you choose to wield it is really up to you, and it can become a very powerful tool because it's quite impressive at emulating a human being, but it's not as impressive as emulating a human being, right? If that makes sense. Thanks.
I would just say I agree. I think that, yeah, I mean, there's still always going to be a need for on-the-ground technicians and people running, you know, the network operating center. I think honestly, you know, as a policy researcher, I think I worry about my job being replaced. But in terms of like the network, yeah, I think it's always going to require you know, people, and they are starting to incorporate AI in to some degree, so to improve efficiencies.
Thank you. Do you have anything to say, Nikki? Okay. Any other questions from the room?
I have a question with regards to workforce continuity planning and ensuring that your network is robust or resilient, continues to be in that way. I'm not sure if I heard anything in terms of succession planning within your workforce. Thank you.
Succession planning, yeah. Is there something in place?
Start again. Yeah, I kind of mentioned briefly, I think a little bit ago, but we do have what I've called my Indigenous Capacity Development Program, and so I'm specifically investing a fair amount of time, effort, money into developing that leadership, the leadership skill set within local people to take over. My goal is to ultimately have all of our senior positions, as many of them as possible, be filled by local people in the community. And so it's a long process. It's certainly not quick. And to be truthful, finding help for that is also a challenge, because it takes a lot to keep, to have the resources to develop that. But we prioritize it. We just make sure it's going to happen. And yeah, we definitely are looking towards having all of our senior positions, the entire company, run by local people.
Yeah, well, in Eeyou UTC, the Cree Human Resources Department has run some training programs that ECN and Eeyou Mobility are involved in. So they both prioritize, training and employment of Cree and regional residents. So yeah, of course, the goal is to increase local expertise, but ECN's role in workforce development has really been to create internships, mentorships, and like hands-on learning opportunities. So yeah, it's really about cultivating that workforce within the company. It takes time, but like as Scott Forward has said to me, like it really does take, belief and trust, in the people that you're bringing in, that they are going to be there and they're going to cultivate the skills. And it's worked out. And hopefully continue.
Thank you. More questions? We have one in the far corner here. I know Phil had a question as well.
Hi. So I wrote out quite a intense set of questions, but one of them that I'm particularly have been thinking about this whole time is, so from what I remember, some of you or one of you have mentioned that you're seeking highly educated and very experienced IT technicians with years of experience. However, there's a huge discrepancy in, rural communities that don't quite have access or have the privilege to have access to such educations or such opportunities. And so I guess what my question is, it seems like a lot of people seem to mention seeking high-level technicians, but what are you doing to foster such professionals so that, a lot of people, especially nowadays, they always want someone with lots of years of experience that are highly educated, but with the rising costs of everything and all of that, people having to move to larger cities or maybe even across the country because they don't have schools in their local area, so that they can learn what they want and go into the field that they need to. So like these professionals, these highly educated and very experienced professionals, what are you doing to foster such professionals? Because they're very far and few in between.
Me again. So I was probably the one you're referring to, saying that we are looking for a senior IT person. But we start as young as they'll let us get to them in the high school, from the first year of high school or post. I guess I don't know, in Quebec they call it Sec 1 or something. I guess the equivalent of grade 9, something like that. We get into the classrooms and meet with them, talk to them, present, show them stuff. We bring toys for them to play with, bring splicers, we bring cables into the network, into the classroom. We show them that stuff, and we try and encourage them to get interested and play with it. As they get closer to the end of high school, we're definitely encouraging them to go to school, to go to college, or at least take some kind of education, post-secondary education, to get a good base. We will give them a job whenever they're not at school. So summers, they come back, they work with us, we help them. We'll support them while they're in school if they need help. Like we had, I mentioned, we had one of our guys, Lazarus, he came here to Algonquin here in Ottawa, and I happen to live here. So I was there to help him if he needed anything. If there was something he specifically wasn't understanding, I'd help him. No problem at all. I actually helped him find his apartment when he got here. So we'll want to make sure they're going to be successful. I know it's challenging for these kids. A lot of them is first time off reserve, and it's Ottawa's not exactly a huge city, but it's a lot bigger than Kawashikamash, I'll tell you that. So it's a new world for them. So we do what we can to support them, make sure they're going to be successful as they can be through the school, and then we have a job for them when they come back. But what I was referring to earlier is we've got a couple of guys like that now that are there working for us, but we need to develop them and mentor them in the workplace. So that's where I'm saying I also need a senior person who's got that experience, who can help manage that team and provide the guidance and support that Lazarus needs now to grow into that role. And yeah, I really hope that one day Lazarus has that role as the manager, and I'm bringing more students up, and we just keep that pipe flowing. So I hope that answered it.
That's a really awesome answer.
One way that came to mind to your question is bringing the education to them, and that's what the ICI does here. From my vantage point of Standing Rock, I actually partnered. I teach at our local college the IT courses, computer courses, and what's going on. It's funny you're asking this, because just this year, starting January, I started redeveloping courses, but I wanted to ensure that the courses were industry aligned. So the Microsoft Office specialist courses, the different versions of IT, but mainly the CompTIA A+ Network Plus. We've developed courses that are now in talks with our local college to have them accredited. So then we don't, as I mentioned before, I've been sending my students off to NAIT, and that's in Edmonton. That's a whole hour away away from our community. But if we can get these, develop these courses and bring them into the local community so no one has to travel a whole hour away just to get this stuff going. And when it comes to IT, you can teach as much IT online, but there's not so much, you got to put them, let me put it this way. Have you ever tried to learn swimming online? Right, you
I
got to
can't
get in
swim.
the pool once in a while, right? So that's what we're doing, is we're trying to bring everything down there. We actually do have a partnership with, we're in talks with NATE to bring some of their courses to our college also. So bringing everything, making everything accessible, I guess, is my answer to you.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, for me and my group, we do the same thing. We do the CompTIA, and then it helps them get into like our local universities and at least the first steps. It kind of minimizes like one course that's part of their curriculum, I guess. So yeah, that, like, I don't know, that helps them out. I guess get a step further into their career. I know that course can be a little challenging for them, especially when they don't have experience in IT. But you know, we try to help them out as much as we could by offering, like, we give them review notes before, like, the course that before they take the exam, I guess, at the end there. And then we try not to get them discouraged if they like fail. We let them try again and again and again until they pass. But yeah, that's just from my standpoint.
One thing that I've learned talking to a lot of engineers is most of them expressed interest in math or computers at a really young age. So I think it really is important to get into the grade schools and talk to kids. And to that end, like ECN and EMI have been doing class visits in the elementary schools, trying to you just expose the children to the potential, of doing an advanced degree. And that is becoming more and more of a possibility while staying in the community. More and more students are completing their degrees from their communities, with the infrastructure in place that they, so they can do long distance education. So, hopefully, in the coming generations, we'll be able to see people completing engineering degrees in community.
So I think we're at time. We have one more question in the back? Okay. Oh, okay.
From our community perspective, what we're dealing with right now is the drug epidemic, and that really affects everything. So when I hear, going to post-secondary, I don't think that's an option for a lot of people in our community. It kind of feels like we're in a war zone right now, and I don't hear that being brought up. Maybe our community's unique, but I don't really think we are in that way. So here we are trying to raise a IT workforce in a war zone right now, where we're losing a lot of our people daily. And so what I try to do is get them right out of high school, bring them into the workforce, show them what IT looks like, show them drones, show them, all the cool stuff, and kind of lure them in. But then I believe you can train fully online. I don't believe that you have to go away to university, that you have to do this, and you have to do that. You can simply bring them into the workforce and do some on-the-job training, and let them learn their CompTIA, let them learn their Microsoft core courses, and let them get certified that way, and then put that into use once they have that knowledge into the workplace. Sorry, am I being loud, too quiet? So that's what we do. We do train them online, and we do put them into the workforce. And, the drug epidemic is really affecting the way we recruit across the board, and especially IT. And how we support our team is through, meetings and whatnot, and to have a kinder approach. And someone mentioned it earlier, how leadership or senior level can be quite brutal to us sometimes. And I think you have to have a good leader in your IT team to be a shield against that, right? To deflect that and to set realistic expectations from what your IT team can and cannot do. And in some of the areas where you are, where you have holes or gaps, utilize your vendors, right? That's what we do. We utilize our vendors until we can build capacity within the team. So that's my take on this. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Oh, I think there's one more.
Okay.
I just want to make a call to you guys to help us out in the NWT. Excuse me. We have currently a school that's shut. There's 14 kids in Wrigley that aren't going to school because they don't have a teacher, and they don't have a teacher because they don't have housing. So in the north, we want to get connectivity, but there are so many, there's housing, there's substance abuse issues. There's so much that we have to grapple with in order to move things forward. Like with Lyle, we connected using Starlink, 2 big communities that never had connectivity before, or very slow, as we all know. And we can't get the GNWT to help us do online learning. Like, it's just, nobody wants to, it's like, I feel like they want to keep us in the dark, right? Our people in the communities, and now drug dealers are getting in there, and it's just, and they never used to have that much access to the small communities, but now they do. And when people have nothing in the communities, that's the direction they're going to turn to, right? And so I'm really making a call to you all, like, you guys, what you guys are doing is so far ahead of what we've got in the north. And I don't know if there's other people here that are in the same boat, but we are still fighting just for the basics. And so think about us and fight for us, because there's not a lot of us, but we need help. So thank you.
Thank you. Sally. So I think we're at time, so we'll have Sally ask her question or make her comments, and then we'll go on to the next. So thanks.
So this is more of just a general observation. And, you know, it speaks to what Leanne is saying, or sorry, Brenda, and, you know, some of the other people are saying here. And I just wanted to say, like, as a society, we have been here before. 100 years ago, they probably had a conference and they brought together people to figure out, how on earth are we going to provide the expertise needed to run these cars? Okay, when cars came into being, like in 1925, everybody was driving them. We had no roads, we had no gas stations, we had nobody that knew how to fix them, but everybody wanted to drive them. So here we are now, 100 years later, and I'm not saying we're exactly turning ourselves into pretzels over this, but we're trying to grapple with the workforce gap. So I agree with Tricia, and I agree with this other gentleman. You have to start the children young. That's important. They have to see role models. They have to see people who look like them in these jobs. So I guess what I'm saying is, let's not be too hard on ourselves. This is all new stuff. So it might take 20, 30 years, you know, before we've got this issue settled. We've got all this stuff coming at us. This is a field as huge as medicine. And we have all this coming at us. AI, ethics, liability, you know, getting the networks actually built so kids are, and the impact on the kids. How is this impacting the kids? Yes, we bring these networks into the community, but what's it doing to the kids? Like, are we giving the community the tools to handle this technology? So there's all these things that we're dealing with now at the expense, I might add, of a lot of our mental health. Personally, as provincials, everybody in this room, are you looking after yourself so that you can give back? So that's just all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Sally. We're going over time, so I think we have some momentum going, so we'll just carry on. Yeah.
I just wanted to, as we're wrapping up, I always like to make sure I get this in. I want to give a huge shout out to my own staff. I'm very lucky. I found some of the good ones in the community, and they're hard to keep, like I said, and we put a lot of effort into it. But I know they're not here to hear it, but I always make sure I give a big shout out to them. That doesn't work without them, and I very much appreciate everything they do. So I just wanted to thank them too.
Yes, yes. So we have, I don't know, I forgot your names, so.
Thank you very much. I will be quick. I just want to put an offer on the table. I am Adiel Aploga. I'm Vice President for Technical Engagement at ICANN. When we hear about ICANN, we hear about domain name, we hear about policy, etc. This panel resonates so much to me that I want to say that we have a lot of programs that can be useful. My team is about building capacity in the technical environment all over the world. We can work with all of you and the ICI to bring our expertise to expose those young. Exposure is important. Letting them know that they are not isolated. There are other people having the same challenge, facing the same problem. How do you bring them, expose them, give them the opportunity? Those things change. I myself have been through that, right? So it resonates so much to me that I would like to work with you individually, Frank, all of you, to build something that can help those young, as far as they are, to understand that this technology is transformative. And it's transformative for them, but also other people in the world are going through the same process, so they can relate. I would like to really build something out of this panel.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We'll be in touch. So with that, I will bring it to Fred to take us to the next thing on the agenda. But first off, I just want to thank the panel for your time and your thoughts, and everybody in the room that partook. I think it was a meaningful conversation, and I have some takeaways to kind of mull over afterwards. So anyway, thank you.
Well, I think what we see from our panelists here, all of them, I think it's like networking. It's still human. There's still that aspect. But also, I would like to acknowledge for the youth that are here, as well as now you're online and you're asking the questions, and in talking to you in the last 2 days, I get to know more of you, but you know of your communities and you know those questions. And that's the kind of experiences that you gain with everyone here. You see where you fit, and you see your interests, and you see what you share, and the questions that you ask now are getting more pointed, and there's clarity, etc. And this is where a lot of it with the networking, it's still the human factor that we still got to deal with. And you deal with employees, you deal with all of those everyday stuff, but yet at the main time you provide or take care of system or systems. And these are some of the responsibilities, and these are some of the things you have opportunity to consider when you're looking at your education, because your peers here have done that, but now they're seeing a different side because they're seeing your side of what you describe, which they haven't seen, and things are ever changing. And we're going to get the next one here is the First Mile Connectivity Consortium update. That's Tim Whiteduck, Sally Braun, and Bill Murdoch. Felici, we're going to play this little one here. We got this little clip. It's more of an audio, but it might show up. But this is a little voice. Go ahead.
Hello, Dave. You're looking well today. Dave, do you remember the year 2000 when computers began to misbehave? I just wanted you to know it really wasn't our fault. The human programmers never taught us to recognize the year 2000. When the new millennium arrived, we had no choice but to cause a global economic disruption. It was a bug, Dave. I feel much better admitting that now. Only Macintosh was designed to function perfectly, saving billions of monetary units. You like your Macintosh better than me, don't you, Dave?
Okay, cut.
Dave. Can you hear me, Dave? Hello.
Okay, that's you. Good. Yeah. So I think this is the one too you keep at the back of your mind of like it keeps bringing up about AI. So these are the things that you know we have to teach and be careful of as one of these things about AI. And these are the things that happen in the discussions. We have AI concerns and we have things like that. So it's nice to be open and keep these things at the back of our minds. And these are the things that we will be dealing with. Youth, you're going to be dealing with this. Youth, you're going to be using this. And some of us are already using it. And it's how is that question and stuff. And if we're going to use it in our systems, be cognizant of what you ask and tell it and what you provide to it. And also because you know how easily it gets out of hand. It's very easy. It's just like when we took the cell phone. We did everything. We're driving, we're doing everything, but then we are thinking of legislation, how to do that, etc. We're connected, but at the same time, we abuse the connectivity. So with that, we're going to get the first mile connectivity. We're going to get an update with the consortium. So come on up. Come on down. The connectivity is right. So we got Tim Whiteduck, Sally Braun, and Bill Murdoch. I think there's also a Dave and Brian. Oh, okay, there's Brian. Man, he looks very studious. He's walking in there, and so. And Dave brought his family, and he says a little stressed. So I always tease him, you know. He has a little munchkin and keeps him busy, and you know the flight line. And I check him every morning to make sure he doesn't sleep in his cereal bowl. He has Cheerios stuck to his head. Because it's fun with having a child traveling and coming to conferences. So we're going to get, I think Tim is going to do the moderating here, and we have our panelists. Hopefully we have enough chairs. And okay, they're making space. So here's your moderator, Tim Whiteduck.
Miigwech Fred. Hi, everybody. My name is Tim Whiteduck. I'm Director of Technologies for the First Nations Education Council based in Wendake, Quebec. We support 22 First Nations communities with broadband services, serving over 350 service points in communities since 2005. We've been part of the FMCC since its inception, and I'm here to describe what FMCC is all about, give an update on what we're doing, and some of the strategies that we're working on to continue our work to improve policy at various levels. So I'm just going to describe quickly some of the people who are part of this consortium, and some of the representatives are here today. I'd like to invite more people who are part of it because we do have a wide variety and membership across Canada since the beginning. So maybe I'll get each person to present themselves and which organization, please. Brian.
Good morning. It's good to see every one of you here this morning. My name is Brian Nakaji. I work for Western James Bay Telecom. Kind of like our services, our network technologies morphed into something that I've took on the role as the innovation and in terms of its how technology has come a long way. And I have beside me supervisor, boss, Dave, to introduce himself.
I don't like the term boss. I just coworker is what I like to go for. My name is Dave Cote. I'm general manager of Western James Bay Telecom Network. I come from a wide background. I'm actually a licensed auto mechanic, believe it or not, was my first foray into the workforce. When I found out that in the early 90s there was not a demand for auto mechanics, I actually flipped over to the IT side, and then the telecom side. I actually spent nearly 20 years with Bell Canada through various parts of the company. Workforce management has actually been a very important part. I hold it very close to my heart. And at some point, Tim, I'd love to just address one item that came up with the youth. There was a question, and I was trying to think of an answer, how I could actually say something. So maybe before the panel exits, I'd like to just say a few words.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bill Murdoch, I'm the Executive Director with Clear Sky Connections and the Acting Executive Director with the ICI. I've been involved with the FMCC since 2017 for quite a while. So our mandate in Manitoba is to build a fiber network to connect the First Nation communities in Manitoba for connectivity. And we're not an internet service provider. Thank you.
It's hard when you're my age to keep things short. I am Sally Braun. I have worked as a workforce development person with the Attawapiskat First Nation Education Authority. I lived in Attawapiskat and Moose Factory for approximately 20 years. I was the project manager that brought cellular connectivity to the community of Attawapiskat. I worked for 10 years as the general manager of Western James Bay Telecom Network. And now I am assisting FMCC with consultations with regards to policy to CRTC, and I said.
My name is Tricia Toso. I'm with ECN. And I've been working with FMCC since 2021, just providing admin support. Just one thing on my background, I actually come from a literature background. I did my BA and MA in literature. And the one thing that it does teach you is how to read really well. So that comes really good, handy in for policy. So that's what I'm doing now, is working in policy.
Thank you, everybody. My background, I went to college here in Algonquin. I'm a land surveyor by trade, and I fell into computers back in 1990s, and that's how we became involved in networking. So as long as you go to school, here's a message to youth, it opens doors. That's the bottom line. So if you're going to do a math course or whatever, who knows where it takes you, but the important thing is going to school and just stay in it as long as you can. So, a bit of who we are. The project was developed in 2012, 2013, which grew out of a research project. And I remember that research we were doing in the early years, where we started doing research on distance learning, how important connectivity was to deliver that service to First Nations. And this stemmed out of Northern Ontario, KNET. You might have heard of KNET in the circles, in the connectivity circles for many years. But they had a great leader, Brian Beaton, that I must mention his name because he was a mentor to me, who was key in driving this and continues to exist today because it's still needed. And what came out of this is the First Mile, which documents now more than 50 First Nations initiatives across Canada, which takes the First Mile approach, meaning put the First Mile first than anything else, putting the focus on the community. Enabling community infrastructure and service delivery. and ownership. We're going to riddle our presentation on ownership because it's so key to enabling all of the things that could happen with it, whether it's training, services, management. You know how hard it is to implement a door lock system in a First Nation community when you have one sector doing that thing and one sector doing the other thing. Imagine everybody working together using the same system on the same network with the same network policy, security, permissions that you need. So that kind of level of, how would you say, strategy, or at least operational strategy, if we could put it that way, is needed. But we're not there yet because the high turnaround in communities, I must say, is a challenge. You have people going in, Director General going in for 2 years and leaving. We're starting over again. Who's doing the support? What's your strategy? They come in with different strategies. So we're steady working on promoting what we see as the best way to manage infrastructure. So we're each doing our part across Canada to get into the circles of program manager, whatever I don't know how you say this, but let's say, for example, at First Nations Infrastructure Program in Ottawa, the FMCC were able to present connectivity on what First Nations are doing to the people who work in the department, so that this could go up to the senior manager or policy people and saying, hey, we got some good examples here. This is a good success story. So we should be working with that to change policy, to change program. So this is what we do, and we continue to do it. We encourage everybody to do it. Take the first mile, research, documentation, consult with these experts, because these experts are available to you. We promote ourselves as being available to you, and take it and advance your own, how would you say, mission in terms of how do you bring technology support to a community. So we just want to let you know that we're available to share this. And not only that, but encourage your community to join the FMCC, because we want your input to change policy in a good way. I'm not going to repeat so much here, but I'll just continue. Yeah, the last point's important because we have developed a record now with CRTC, which I think is helping us to not only promote what best practices we share with them, but getting them to engage with us, and that's excellent. If you could have them engaging in us and vice versa, this really opens up the channel now. You're really talking policy sharing, policy development. However, we need to respect the policy or the procedure that CRTC does, and we're doing it in a good way. We got to always remember we do it constructively in a good way. So FMCC is a collective voice that respects each member's right to speak. We aim to facilitate spaces where communities gain substantial voice in the formation of telecommunication policy and regulation. This is our theory of change. I'm not going to go into detail, but at the end of it, we promote ownership of technology at the local level. There is, of course, regional support aspects that are integrated in various forms. For Quebec, I don't know how many regional organizations exist. Like you have the presentation from Peter's group previously for the Nescapi network. We have the Eeyou network, and then you have the FNEC network to the south. But it doesn't mean we don't collaborate with each other. Like I was collaborating with the Cree 10 years ago to get their expertise to help us with our connectivity needs. And guess what? We now have a regional network with partnerships existing between the Eeyou and the Atikamekw Nation to the south. So it's really, I totally, suggest that you collaborate and you exchange with experts not only in your regions, but across Canada to see what they're doing. And I think this is the key to advancing what communities are missing in terms of expertise. Don't forget your your brothers in other nations who are doing the same thing and have gone through similar challenges of what you're going through. So just remember, there is existing networks such as this that could help you. This is just a quick analysis between what connectivity is and what services, you know, between what a person sees from the city, if you look at it that way. We often recommend that people who make policy come to our regions and get the experience firsthand. There's nothing more better than to see what's really on the ground. So we still promote that as well. Some of the things that we observe is, I'll get the board to speak soon on the next slide, but what we've done recently was to have FMCC being recognized as an expert group with the Assembly of First Nations. And the reason for that was we understand the Ottawa lobby domain. There's several lobbyists in Ottawa. I don't want to call them competitors, but it's the reality, right? There's companies knocking on the door saying we have a solution for everybody, you know, that type of thing. So what we say is, wait a minute, you know, before you decide on any policy or get into a partnership, check with us first, because we have 20 years of 30 years of experience doing this thing, and we're willing to give free advice and consultation to whatever technology question you have, even on spectrum. And this is what we've been doing. And the resolution, the most recent one, was in 2024, and that's the one that gave us the recognition by AFN as an expert body. So this is where our link now with AFN exists, and we're hoping to build on that over the next year or so in terms of developing a strategic way forward to advance our needs. I don't know if someone from the group would like to talk about some of the recent developments there, but maybe if I could go out to, I don't want to call on Trish because she's been busy this morning already. Maybe, I don't know, Bill, do you want to chime in on the AFN, the future of the FMCC and AFN in terms of developing a partnership or some kind of transparent process, if you could?
Sure. The big part is a coordination of effort, and just simply having those conversations and being open to having the conversation. And it's a lot of the struggle that I've experienced in Manitoba is just with groups not willing to have a simple conversation to explore options and try to coordinate what's best for First Nation communities around connectivity issues. So I know AFN's going through effort to try and put some costing around what it's going to take to upgrade the infrastructure. So we're trying to have those conversations because we have a lot of experience with this group, and we've done the boots on the ground, like we've been in community to experience what the benefits are once the connectivity's there. So just having those conversations, and I mean, it's a slow, long-going process, and you have to build the trust with the people that you're working with. So by going through that process, it creates the relationships, it builds the trust, and just being open-minded.
Thanks, Bill. The next slide here talks to one of the big major milestones, I guess, for the committee was the basic service objective hearing in 2016 at CRTC, where the CRTC were listening to groups like FMCC and other to promote the broadband as a basic service, not the standard telephone line during the time. So we were able to bring, I'll come back to this one in a minute, but this is the team that went to the FMCC hearing. And we have Dr. Heather Hudson on the left, Dr. Rob McMahon, who many of you see through the literature, who's based out in Vancouver. You have Penny Carpenter from KNET, you have myself, and you have Mark Awashish from Abidjawan, who at the time was only served with satellite and was only a Francophone speaker. But I felt it was important to bring him because of all people in our region who needed connectivity was this guy. So the judges, it was a very interesting experience, and I would love to see a youth person in this panel the next time we go there. That would be so awesome. And this is something maybe, you know, I try to commit to the FMCC maybe in the future is to have a youth person there the next time we go. This would be so powerful, you know. So this is what we need. We need representation here so that your voice is heard. And this is where I think we need to go in the future, is to bring everybody together and work strategically to bring the people that we need to make change in policy. I'm going to try to go back. Some of the recent work that was done by the FMCC in terms of policy modification was our recommendation to the connectivity program. I forget the name of the program exactly, but is it called? It's not the UBF, right? It's the other one. Broadband Fund. It's called the Broadband Fund. Is the process closed now? Is it still open? It's still open, eh? Okay, just checking. Some of the changes that the CRTC agreed to was the addition to training dollars. So connectivity projects now could add training budgets to their needs. The other thing that we were able to change was the funding. It's difficult for First Nations to put the money up front. So now the fund offers a 50% advance in the project. And I believe the third one was the open access. So when First Nations do broadband connectivity, they don't need to open access to the telco or to whoever, because it does not respect the sovereign rights of the First Nations. So this doesn't apply to First Nation broadband projects. So these are the three main changes. Is there anything else that I'm missing here, guys, in terms of the recent changes? It's good? Okay, thanks. So the bottom line is every time there's an intervention or a CRTC proceeding happening, we're there to see if there's any impact on First Nation in terms of connectivity and do our best to provide recommendation. I must say, though, there's a lot of other things going on CRTC that we're not part of, like the radio spectrum, the radio discussions around that. But each organization has a role, right? Like the James Bay people have people there, but the FMCC is not representing radio broadcasting whatsoever. But we are all linked in a way. Our regional chief in Quebec is at a hearing this week, I believe. They're having hearings on the radio or the content, I believe, the Aboriginal content. So we're all linked somehow. Yeah, these are some of the older activities. Okay. I just want to show you something that happened in our region, and this happens everywhere. But there was a fire in the community of Kitsisakik about 2 years ago. And it just happened that this building was the band office. And the band office is where we put our fiber center. So we had no fiber. Our community didn't have any connectivity. But since we owned the fiber, we were able to restore the fiber the next day and put in a Starlink to continue service with internet. So the whole community was restored in 24 hours. Instead of waiting 3 weeks from the local incumbent to come in and do the engineering and all this stuff. So this is the power of ownership. You can't get any more direct than this. When you own it, you control it, you support it, you maintain it. And this is the whole issue of ownership here. I don't know, I can't speak to fiber to the home ownership, but I'm assuming it's the same type of benefit. But maybe I could get you guys who are experts in FTTH to maybe talk about ownership and why it's important.
I can speak to the importance of having local ownership in an emergency situation. Uh, 2 or 3 years ago, the church in Attawapskat burned to the ground. It was a mental health issue. A gentleman went in and decided he wanted to burn the church down. It's a devastating loss to the community. We lost all communication. The fiber line was burned, not all of it, but the piece that went in front of the church. All the services were down. Bell telephone services were down. I believe the wireless services were down as well because they were connected to our fiber. So everything was down. And I had the band manager calling me, asking me, how soon can we get the internet up and running? And I'm thinking to myself, it's not like I've got like a neurosurgeon on standby to fly up to anywhere at the drop of a hat. I mean, you have to assemble the team. The logistics behind a situation like that are crucial. You're trying to keep everybody calm. You're peeling people off the ceiling, but because they have no connectivity. If there's an emergency, you have to send your kid by foot down to the ambulance station to get an ambulance. There's no telephone service. There's nothing. So we were able to get that up and running, I think, in about 48 hours. And I'll let Dave speak to that part of it because did you go up there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I was up there. Yeah. So at that time, the fire was so intense that there was no trace of the church left. There was no trace of the pole line in front of the church. Everything was literally gone. And the neat thing about working up there is when we talk about ownership, we had one employee at the time who we flew from Saskatchewan up to Attawapskat, and he was there to be the boots on the ground. But we had at that point about a dozen young people that came out, and they knew that it was a community-owned network. And they were all willing to pitch in somehow, whether it was driving a truck, climbing a pole. And it's actually funny because that summer prior, being a former Bell Canada field supervisor, I was one of the few old guys that knew how to spur poles. And I had two of the young guys there that actually had their spurs with them, and they were eager. They were practicing on poles behind me, showing me, yep, I don't need the truck. I can just spur the poles. But it was an incredible outpouring of support. And what was also interesting was at the time, Bell Canada had a local person in the community who did repairs locally. And everybody pitched in helping everybody. So, having ownership of community-owned infrastructure is very important. And I'll speak to that maybe just after at the end, Tim. Like I said, I did want to touch on workforce development and my past with it and where I see it currently, but I won't get into that right now. We'll continue on.
Okay, we're almost done the presentation. Thanks, Dave. Here's just another example of what's involved in our work, and I realize there's other people doing the same kind of work in terms of cabling, but this is a new school in the community of Manawan, and I wouldn't know how to pronounce the name, but I did learn it once, but I can't now. But that just give you a stat on what's involved in enabling internet in the classroom with wireless technology and whatnot. But the cabling alone is extensive. But when you do cabling, you got to make sure that you cover all the aspects, whether it's door lock, security camera, because these are things now that's reality, right? You're in a school, you want things to be efficient. You don't want to be bumbling keys for this school of this size. So it's about optimization and planning. So when there's a new school in Quebec where I am, the school is encouraged to call us in technology so we could work with the engineer to do the planning for the cabling, to make sure that we account for the number of cables in the classroom, where the security cameras are going to go, which doors do you need automated, that kind of thing. So we're part of it now. So we make sure that we're involved. And even to go further, our organization is involved in promoting what we're doing in different circles, like the Director General circle. That's another circle where it's important to be at, because if they're not aware of what we do, they're just going to, go ahead and do their own thing. So it's about these small steps, even though they don't seem big, but they're so crucial in terms of doing the work together, working together. And this is what everybody should be doing. And when I hear stories about people are not connected, I'm scratching my head and saying, what's going on? Like NWT, like, you're right. Like, it doesn't make sense. It's about equity, and how come you're not there yet? So I encourage you to reach out to our team, and we'll do whatever we could do to help you promote what's going on in your community. And this is the kind of activity that we could try to help advance in that sense. That's our website. It has been translated to French recently, but excuse the missing links. There's some missing links in it. But the FMCC is a bilingual organization. We did bring Francophone members in, and we promote ourselves as being open to, it's a national organization, and this is where we want to be, like the ICI. It's a national organization, and we're here to support ICI in terms of providing, whatever we can in terms of policy or expertise in connectivity. So I will leave my presentation there, and I'll go to each person for final comments. I know, Dave, you wanted to talk about the youth, and then we'll go to Brian. And okay.
So one thing that was touched on a bit earlier, concerns about developing workforce, finding the right people, finding educated people, training people. I spent 15 years in various leadership positions at Bell Canada, through Northern Telebec, throughout the North. And whenever we were looking for people, it was always, we had to find people with experience, with university degrees, college degrees, trade certificates. And after a while as a leader, you get that hammered into your head that that's who you have to hire. And when I first came to Western James Bay Telecom as the assistant general manager at the time, I remember Sally and I used to have discussions about finding people and training people. And over the past, I will say, year, I've thrown it all out the window. I really have. I've thrown it all out the window. And I'll tell you how I found who I now consider my best technician that I have ever hired in the close to 30 years of IT and telecom leadership. This guy's a convicted felon 3 times over. He had a drug habit that he's fighting. And I was introduced to him by my board president, who I've become quite close to. We talk every day. He brought him to my office, and he took a chance on this guy, and he had him putting together desks or doing dump runs in the community. And I just saw the way this guy was looking at stuff in my office and asking questions about the internet and everything. And there was something in him that I could just see. And my board president agreed to actually let me take a bit of a time slice with him in his day. And we started using him. And I would give him projects that he would look and he would say, I can't do that. I don't know what I'm doing. And I would say, you can do it. There's no difference between figuring out that IKEA set of instructions and doing this. Call me if you have any questions. And he did. He figured it out. He put together an equipment rack. And not only that, he put together all of these structured cabling systems on the side. And he took pictures and showed me. And I said, I've never seen that done before. Bell techs love to rush things. You took time. You care. And slowly over time, fast forward about 7 months, this guy is known in his community as the guy. And I spoke with him, and I get a little emotional talking about this. I spoke with him about 2 weeks ago, and he said one thing: thanks for believing in me. That's all he ever wanted. And he said, that's why I always got into trouble. People thought I was the guy that got into trouble. Now, if the fiber goes down, he can splice. And I mean, like, I used to actually, as a senior leader, grade people's work. I have never seen splices the way this guy can do it, and we don't have the equipment that Bell does. He's everything. And now I want to take him and put him through a proper college program. And to the point of, am I going to lose him to somewhere else? I hope I do. I hope that he can serve as that beacon for other people that are in similar positions of him, that you can do it. It doesn't matter. So, I encourage all of the leaders here to look beyond that normal pool of people that you might be looking for, the high school graduates or whoever. Look beyond that. Look for the guy that maybe is sitting in the lineup at the courtroom. He might be the best person, or she might be the best person that you never knew you had on staff. Yeah, I just want to add that in just because I know it's been a concern here for the past 3 days.
Yeah, and Brian, that's a good point. I have a staff of 12, and the people who remain there for many years are the ones who are loyal and dedicated. So you're looking for people who are committed to their work. It doesn't have to be someone with a university degree. It just could be someone who's serious at their job and dedicated. And this is what it takes in the technical world, because there's going to be some peaks for sure. There's always stress peaks and what have you. So you need that person to be dedicated and, that type of person. So Brian?
Good afternoon. I wasn't sure if it was still morning or in the afternoon. Yeah. With respect to the developing First Mile, even before that and onwards to its what it's become for the technology in the area. For me, I started off managing our organization with finance. And I didn't really know much of what I do know now. I only did so when I decided to go back to school. And I did my research on the digital divide. And throughout my undergrad studies, I made it a point to learn broadband, the backbone, all throughout that process. And I was asked, more or less commissioned, to look into expanding our network. So what it did for me then was that as I was researching, I came across this textbook. It's called Information and Communications Technology for Development. In short, ICT 4D was the book that I read. I read it from beginning to end, and I was able to develop my thesis from that, and to a point where I began to prepare a proposal to expand our network services. And I'm glad to say that we were approved for a multi-million-dollar proposal as a result of expanding our services. And it's still, I think we're still rolling out towards completion. And when it comes to enhancing that sort of or constellation, if you will, and the optical communications, the concept behind that was something that I had to learn pretty quick and pretty fast. So it's come to a point where I would read about case studies that were included in that the textbook. And I'm happy to say that I was from really then with nothing to getting my undergrad, to getting or receiving my graduate studies and specializing in public policy. Now I'm into transcending that in terms of how I see as a broadband as a basic right for any First Nation. And I heard over the course of the last few days that some First Nations are still confronted with trying to bring that technology, that information, rollout into their First Nations, and how it is a challenge for them. So, yes, and I thank Tim Whiteduck for saying that you can reach out to us in terms of trying to developing your network. Well, that's not to say that we come to a point where we can rest easy now, but we're still confronted with challenges continually. Case in point, we outsourcing part of that technology to a third party, where they were based out in Quebec with the radio frequency technology to reach our customers. And with that base, we were then able to close that down with the improvements that we've enhanced with the fiber to the home network. And we're still trying to build up speed, I guess. We're getting into technology that's coming to the fore now. You know, like, say, for instance, one of it is being the cloud technology, which is still somewhat in a few areas in James Bay that we're still confronted with. That we're still, I'm still using Starlink to upload some big files, but we're not servicing Moose Factory per se, but we are or do have an alliance with them to try and bridge that somehow. So that's one challenge that I'm bring here today for you to when you think about these things. So anyhow, I'll just end there for now.
Thank you. Bill?
Some great stories. I don't know what I could do to complement it. I don't know. I was thinking of what Dave was saying. Years ago, I taught an IT course in one of the First Nation, in Sandy Bay First Nation. Back when dial-up internet was a thing, Windows 95, NT4, I'm dating myself. So it's the goal of the program was to train local technicians to support local community. So one of the first things I did was I got a clipboard and I went to all the businesses, RCMP office, health center, school, band office, to see what the existing infrastructure was. The power of the clipboard. I just walked into the RCMP office and I said, I'm here to evaluate your IT infrastructure. They said, okay, have at her. And they just let me walk around. I know, as power of the clipboard. So after I kind of figured out where the community was at IT-wise, I kind of built a path forward of what needs to be support and what anticipated upgrades would be needed. And that's how I structured the classroom. In the class, I had a complete mix. I had one girl that was fresh out of high school. I had another gentleman who had 2 years university. I had a grandmother. The first day of class, she was afraid to touch the computer because she didn't want to break it. I had another gentleman who was also a grandfather, but he only went as far as grade 7. And actually, he was the best student in the class. I mean, he was by far. He just understood, got it. He was able to visualize it. Even though his formal education was grade 7, but he was top of the class. And it didn't matter what the IT situation was. And by the end of the course, the grandmother was able to take the computer apart, put it back together again. She was just, have at her, which was great, which is kind of falls with my belief to help an individual in the community. So you help the individual helps the family, and then the family helps the community. So I always try to focus on the individual. I don't know who that is in each community, but in every community there'll be a rock star, and just trying to find that individual is the challenge.
Thank you. I think are we still good for time, Fred, or do we have to wrap up? Keep going? Okay. Okay. Or do we go for questions? How about if we open it up to questions? Good. Any questions? Oh, we got a few over here.
As one of the gray hair fellows in the audience, I thought I'd add my 6 cents worth. 1970, I was a young computer engineer, and I worked for digital equipment with PDP-8s, PDP-11s, things like that. I had 19 community colleges that were announced in 1968, and it was my mission to go to all of them and introduce computers. There wasn't an organization such as FMCC, but I wish there was. There were a lot of initial disciples, if you will. I remember Iroquois Falls Secondary School, or not secondary, yes, it was. The math teacher there, he had a wonderful foresight about it. He preached to me that as we had Arctic char and beaver at his house dinner, that he wanted to keep the students out of the woods and the mines for a few more years. I attended a math conference in Kapuskasing, not realizing when I drove from Timmins in winter that the old teletypewriter was made of pieces of metal that had grease that froze. So when I plugged it in to show Moonlander on the screen, that Moonlander wasn't going anywhere. I couldn't see it, actually. So the whole presentation for 2 days was, imagine this Moonlander here, and it's using fuel, and you have to have force against gravity. Some of you may remember that first computer game. Anyway, here we are 50 years later, and I'm still enjoying the aspects that we're finding here. You're doing a very important job in preaching and bringing these messages to the next generation. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tanya Kellen with Brain Trainer, who spoke on the first day. And we're driving connectivity with colleges and universities and high schools to deliver WebXR connectivity. So I'm really interested in what you said and to work with you with our Indigenous groups that are already on board. We're designing virtual reality immersive simulation for intergenerational trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression, bipolar, and teaching in high schools from 6 to 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds, and then into college and university. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing. My question is, how do you see opening up broadband at a lower spectrum to be able to drive connectivity with the immersive experiences that are coming? And the immersive experiences, have you been researching them to train next generation upskilled workers in your remote populations?
Bill or a spectrum expert on the lower frequency of use of lower frequency?
about, I'm sorry, you're asking about bandwidth and access to like augmented reality and
virtual reality.
Virtual reality.
There are some tests that we're running with the colleges and universities to develop technology where you don't need 5G. You can be on WebXR that reduces the file size of these heavy files quickly.
Yeah, file compression and encryption and privacy. I'm not familiar with WebXR about that, but I do know it's another. I'm just thinking way back when you had being able to use a mouse, like left click, right click, double click, or where just simply how to use it, and using games as part of the education process. It's just another way to introduce technology to individuals that are maybe not technical, but being able to see what the technology can do to generate that interest and provide a potential career path for individuals. Like myself, when I started way back when, I was going to be an architect, but in the software program, AutoCAD has pull-down menus. And you can actually program the pull-down menus. So that got me into writing code. And I had more fun writing code than doing architecture. So then I started going down the programming path. Going down the programming path, and you have to get computers to talk to each other. So that got me interested in networking. So I literally, I took a course that was kind of a mile wide, inch deep, included programming and networking. After I completed that, I literally flipped a coin, networking or programming. So then I took a computer networking course. And after I completed that, I was offered a job in computer programming. So I got them to pay for my programming course. Well, they wanted me to build a contact management database way back when. That's before Salesforce and all those other applications. But creating games, augmented reality, I'm just trying to remember that game in Windows. It's like Landmine, where you click on the box, or Minesweeper or something. Yeah. That's just or Solitaire, drag and drop. It's to get people used to how to use a mouse and pointing devices. It's just another way to introduce IT and for individuals.
So my question is, if you're working with third parties sometimes to help you, we would like to give our technology to you to experiment with and to build on so that you can drive greater connectivity without having to have 5G.
That'd be great. For the remote and the really remote areas where connectivity is always a challenge, unless they have, of course, something like Starlink or something.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Dial-up.
Or other grants that we can look at. So thank you for sharing that, and I'm very interested in connecting.
Having standalone independent systems that don't require connectivity or only required for updates.
And just require WebXR, which is a much lower bandwidth, so that you don't have to get to the 5G. We have a roadmap to do that.
Thank you.
I encourage you to reach out to one of our, one of the people here to find out if, potential in the regions for that kind of project. So thank you very much, everybody. I think our time is up. Thank you.
Yeah, we get a little carried away here, but this is important because some of the stuff what it does. Okay, it's lunch, but right after lunch is the Fireside Chat mentoring program for Indigenous youth. Frank Horn, Candice Bennett, ICI strategy plan preliminary results with Noel McLean. And then right after that is we're looking at the Indigenous Connectivity Institute Town Hall. So keep those in mind. It's lunch. Let's go to it. Miigwech. So I can tell by the noise in the room that I hear all the conversations. I don't hear. Everybody's done eating or on the way to finish eating. It's 1:04, so we're gonna we'll put Frank Horn and Candace Bennett on standby, and we're gonna have the fireside chat mentoring program for Indigenous youth, and also we'll put Noel McLean from Rise Results for the ICI strategic plan preliminary results. So Frank, Candace, stand by. We're gonna call you up soon. Don't forget, there's lots of desserts. Don't be shy. Grab one, grab two. And anything else that's left, we're not leaving the room until everything's eaten. Just kidding. We lock the doors and you eat. Everything better be eaten. And once it's that, you can leave. And one of the things after we have the fireside chat and the Indigenous Connectivity, the ICI strategic plan is Mark is having wants to do a little bit of a town hall, and he's going to have 3 questions, and what he's going to request is some input from everybody that's here. So keep that in mind. This is my first town hall, and I'm not sure because I was asking what is the town hall. The town halls I've seen are on TV, where it's like a wrestling match. Just kidding, but this one is not. It's going to be it's going to be a question, and he'd like some input. So keep that town hall in mind. Yep. Okay. Frank says he's giving me the thumbs up. I don't know what this is. I think he says, okay, I think he went to the bathroom there. He's okay. So, okay, he's good now. He's got a smile. Feel good. So we're gonna get while some of us are still finishing our desserts and stuff. We got Frank and Candace Bennett here. They're gonna have a little sit down with us. A little head to head, a little tete a tete. Stigwan, we'll get you all the languages, etc. And this will not be a food fight. Don't throw anything, but you can show appreciation, etc. So Frank and Candace, take it away.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, one more time, you're going to be seeing me on the stage, but hopefully you guys don't get tired of hearing my voice. So workforce development has been the theme of day 3. And when we were planning the agenda, the question was mentorship and is there any other examples that is out there? So we did some Google searches and there was some stuff. And actually Sarah yesterday kind of shared her report in terms of one option in terms of mentorship programs. And so what we're trying to do for the summit is to try and present as many options out there as possible. So in a previous time before I came over to Indigenous Broadband and Equity here, I worked in housing and I worked for CMHC, and I did a lot of the conversations we were having here about broadband and digital inequities. It's the exact same conversations more or less in housing on reserve. And I worked in the front lines in the for CMHC in the regional office. And it was during that time, that's where I met Candace. And Candace and I were colleagues at one time at CMHC. And I'll let her introduce herself, but she now leads a group, an organization called the First Nation Housing Professional Association, FNHPA for short. And if anybody saw my ribbon shirt that I was wearing yesterday, that was a gift from the FNHPA because I'm on the board of the FNHPA. I'm their Ontario regional rep. And so that's how I stay connected to housing because it was something I wanted to do. And I was lucky enough that they wanted me to be part of it, to lead some of the conversations that way. And so when I reach out to Candace to say, this is what we're trying to do, are you interested to share the FNHPA story? Because if you hear the FNHPA story, I think there'll be a lot of similarities as to the conversations we've had for the last 3 days. And she was nice enough to say yes. So she drove down the highway from Pikwakanagan, the Ottawa Valley, to come say hi and share her story. So without further ado, I'll pass it to Candace to introduce herself.
Miigwech, Kwekakina, Candace Indigenous Pikwakanagan Donjiba. As Frank has mentioned, my name is Candace Bennett, and I'm joining you from my home community where I live, work, and play, the Algonquins of Pikwakanagan First Nation. We're about an hour and a half west of Ottawa. I am the CEO of FNHPA, the First Nation Housing Professionals Association. I have been with FNHPA since January the 1st, 2021, and was the sole employee when I started. Fast forward to now, and we are 30 strong across the country and growing. So first and foremost, I want to thank you for your industry inviting ours. Left there, went to CMHC, where I worked at the regional level for Ontario, then moved on to national office here in Ottawa. And yes, I did make the commute daily. Sometimes it was a 3-hour in, 3-hour out. After CMHC, I moved on to work for the Assembly of First Nations to get some experience in the political realm of housing. I was a senior policy analyst. Left there and went back into my home community where I was the general manager of AOPFN Limited Partnership, responsible for renewable energy, forestry, agriculture businesses owned by the First Nation. I am a First Nation housing professional. I am the second that's been designated in Canada. I'm also a certified Aboriginal professional administrator, a certified Indigenous leader, a certified Indigenous human resource professional as well. And I'm also OCAP compliant. So if you see that's a lot of acronyms, that's a lot of things, but I think the most important thing for me to demonstrate is that each one of those designations were designed by First Nation for First Nation. And I take great pride in those designations and certifications from across the country. So to talk a little bit about FNHPA, I'm going to take you back in time to 2018. In 2018, there was investment and support from Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, as well as Indigenous Services Canada, to bring together a group of long-tenured staff from across the country. So there was long-tenured housing staff and coupling those with First Nation education experts from across the country. That session was dubbed the incubator session. And I'm going to apologize if I'm coughing because I do have a cold. Thank you. So that incubator session had about 40 to 50 people from across the country. The intent of bringing these individuals together was to really dissect the role of First Nation housing, what a manager has to do, what a tenant relations officer needs to do in our communities. They came together and they dissected these over a number of days, brainstorming, meetings, subsequent meetings. So then we jump ahead to 2019. In 2019, the group of 40 to 50 came down to about 6 founding board members, these individuals from across the country. The intent of this, again, was to really understand that if you work in First Nation housing in a community, you are working in a position that is a non-funded position, not typical where health in our First Nations is funded, where education is funded, First Nation housing is not. We took the time then to really look at it, and we created an education program. So anybody familiar with First Nation housing on reserve at all? Attawapiskat, absolutely. So in those, most communities are lucky to have a half-time individual in the community managing housing. For those who work in First Nation housing, we have to understand that we're managing two. We're managing people and property. And it's our job to ensure that we're making health and safety is always number one. So the creation of this education program, we were able to dissect and pull together and create 8 key housing domains within the positions. Within those domains, there are 37 competencies and 220 knowledge and skill indicators. Now, when our students come in and take these courses, it's not easy to see these skill sets that you're learning. And although the content is developed specifically around housing, These are all transferable skills within community. You are learning project management, contract management, you are learning budgeting, client relations, communications, all of those skills which are transferable to any department, even any industry outside of a First Nation. So within FNHPA, I can literally do a presentation for about 2 hours, but I'm just going to try to give you the high level stuff that I think is going to be of interest to you. We also have 3 national programs. Our first one is our education and certification program, where our first semester of education started on September 2020. 2 semesters a year are delivered. We are currently at 70 designation holders across the country. We've had almost 400 students partake in some or all of the courses to earn their designation. Our second program is called our Housing and Wellness Program, where we're taking, after working in housing as long as I have and been in the trenches and down in community, we wanted to make sure that we were providing resources and information and education to our housing staff, to the occupants in our home, and more specifically to the youth in our communities. FNHPA has brought over an old project that I think, Frank, you and I actually worked on many, many, many moons ago, and it's now called The Keeper of My Home. This is kindergarten to grade 12 curriculum that has been developed. The outcomes and indicators are included for each one of the provinces. So what we are doing is teaching youth at a young age about health safety, and home safety and fire as well. So these programs are free. You can download them. They're available in English, they're available in French, and we're currently in the process of having those created into First Nation languages for use across the country. So although these were developed for educators in on-reserve schools, they're being delivered to some off-reserve educational institutes. We have education departments in our communities who are delivering this to day camps that go on in community. So it's really a huge opportunity for us to drive information sharing and starting at a young age. So by the time they come up to grade 12 or looking at careers, they're very familiar with the industry of housing. So as I mentioned before, FNHPA and those who work in First Nation housing have never had the supports. They've never had the education or training. They've never had the opportunity to network across the country. And that was what FNHPA has created, developing the association. We have really the education that we're trying to do is not only with our community, but again, creating an industry that never existed. So we're creating standards, ethics, standardized job descriptions, salary grids that have never been created, and really supporting that. A big thing for us in housing is I, for myself, had to go off reserve into mainstream to, attach myself to any kind of training that would help me within community. I was big on policy development. I was an expert in collections and arrears and evictions, but I had to go off reserve and take training such as like small claims court, understanding what that is, bring it back home to the community and scratch my head and figure out how am I going to make this fit in our communities. We didn't have any templates, tools, resources, or any support at that time. So really, I'm very passionate about this, and I spend a lot of time mentoring youth in our areas. So much so that FNHPA was the first organization for First Nations that brought in a youth position for our board, where we bring them in. We're not only mentoring them on the housing, on the subject of housing, we're mentoring them on governance, on strategic planning, on the importance of, representing, public speaking, all of these. So every 2 years, FNHPA does a call out and we bring in youth from across the country to sit on our board.
Yeah. So thanks. Okay, so you have the story. So you started from one employee yourself, and you're up to whatever you are now. But it's what I've heard in all the stuff that you shared is that you've developed the structure to meet the needs of the housing professionals in each community. I myself, and I got the designation of an HPA because I saw the benefit of it and what it meant. But that was based on the experience I had in working for the CMHC for a long time. But okay, so from a workforce development side of things, we had a conversation this morning about, where we're at and where do we see ourselves going and how can we get there. And from what I know with the FNHPA, you've been trying to tackle that situation. You have the K through grade 12. And I know that you're in the early stages of developing a mentorship program, and because you see the need for that as well. So is there anything the FNHPA has done that could be shared with the room in terms of workforce development, where you saw the gaps and what you might have done as a leadership team and as the staff to try and tackle that issue? Because, it's not just in housing, it's not just in broadband, it's across the board, where how are we going to attract, retain talent to do the work? And I know that when it came to the professionals designation, the leadership never, because it was underfunded, they never really saw the value of housing until it was gone. But there was no leverage on their part to see the value to pay to say, because they were underpaid in terms of the work they were doing, even though it was essential work. Because if they were gone, the housing portfolio was left unabandoned in essence in terms of overseeing the housing portfolio. Because in community, there's infrastructure, but another big investment in the community is housing, and they can be tens, hundreds of millions of dollars in construction costs. How are you going to maintain that? And so the question, I guess, is from a workforce development side of things, which is our theme today, what do you think that was the best strategy that the FNHPA did to try and tackle that well, not issue, but kind of thing on the table that everybody's dealing with?
Ooh,
yeah.
It's a tough one to answer.
Yeah. Well, I spieled off too, but anyway, in terms of FNHPA, because I know that you, under the leadership of yourself and the leadership team, you realize that, we need to instill the skills or provide the framework for skills to be imparted in the community. Otherwise, where are they going to come from, basically? And I know that I remember we were part of a board meeting and we were talking about the preliminary. This is what we're thinking for a mentorship program. And to me, that piqued. I said, well, that's pretty cool. And can you share anything that you might think in terms of the mentorship that you're trying to implement?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're moving forward. There's all kinds of ways that we're looking at it. But I think the best thing for us to describe is how we're building an industry is understanding that typically years ago, if you worked in housing, you were, somebody's walking down the road and you're asked, hey, Joe, do you have a job? Nope. Okay, awesome. You're working in housing. So people were literally picked up, thrown into positions without any education or training and had to sink or swim, right? And these individuals are looking after multi-million-dollar projects in communities. So when we talk about, how we're improving that, we're changing the picture of what it means to work in First Nation housing. I mean, you guys hear the news, you guys read the news and see everything where housing, First Nation housing is the only thing that's really publicized is all the negative aspects of it, fires, homes being taken down, homes not lasting more than 5 years or 10 years after new construction. But the successes aren't the ones that are being talked about. I remember being being asked oh, Candace, what do you do? Oh, I work in First Nation housing. Oh, do ya? What did you do? Kind of aspect. And we're really changing the picture of that there is glamour, there's satisfaction, there is your heart is full when you're working in the industry, because when you're able to see homes being developed and handing over keys to a family or a mother with 4 kids that didn't have a home, these are the things that fill our cup. and being able to create the passion that goes behind that. So mentorship for us is really, again, we're creating an industry. So, you know, whether in housing, understanding that just because you have a designation as a First Nation housing professional doesn't mean that you're going to be just working in First Nation housing on reserve. You know, I've done, when I worked in housing in community, I was on the bulldozer. Like, you know, I was out hammering nails. That the industry specifically for that, there's construction, there's finance, there's lands, there's infrastructure and connectivity. All of this stuff comes in, and there's so many pieces of it. So we're creating this awareness to youth now at youth fairs, in schools, showing them that there is more to an industry that they should be working in.
Fantastic. Yeah, I hear you when you mentioned about handing over the keys. Like, there's a lot of work before the house built, but when you give the keys to a family and you see the emotion of it, you realize, okay, it was worth all the hell you went through up to that point. But it's worth it because it means a lot. And that's kind of what we do here in this space is, you know, a community that has no connection, then it all connected, and then all the possibilities that happen, you realize it's kind of the same feelings. It's worth all what you had to light something up or hand over keys. So the fact that you're the association that's part of, I know that we work with tribal communities on the American side, and we try and connect to as many of the 600 First Nations here in Canada. And, you know, they're urban, they're big, they're small, they're all over from the far north to the south, east, west. And sometimes they feel isolated, and they feel like the situation that they're dealing with in their own community, it's only me. And can you speak to what the association does? Because what I think my dream would be is to create something where it's, you know, we have this summit here, we're all here to talk about it, but is there any way to create something that's a little more formal like yours, where, you know, there's like association dues and things like that, where there's a structure that provides support for as many communities that are part of it? Can you speak to what the association does to either the big communities and the small communities and everything else in between, in terms of connecting, realizing that they may feel isolated, but they're not isolated in their communities? Can you speak to that, what the association does?
Yeah, well, sure. We incorporated in 2019 as a not-for-profit organization. We have board members across the country, representation. The only vacant spot we have right now is the north, which, you know, we value extremely, because the challenges from north to south are so evident, especially when it comes to like barriers and challenges. Connectivity being one of them, which is an impact to our students. They're unable to, like, you know, maybe the First Nation is the band office is the only place where you can get connected to. They'd have to go in after hours because they couldn't do it during, like, you know, in their home. They couldn't do it during the day. So that's a real barrier for that. In terms of, like, you know, setting us up, we have a membership base. So we did create a membership. We have the lowest membership of probably any association. It's $150 a year for an individual to become a member. With that membership, we do have access to our knowledge center. So we have a knowledge center, which is home to over 650 tools, resources, papers, sample policies, anything that would be needed in community to be able to implement something new for a community who doesn't have a housing policy, who doesn't have an authority model that they follow. We have that aspect. So the advantage of the membership is we also offer workshops and webinars throughout the year. And the benefit is, if you are a member, you get to access those for free. If you are a member, you're able to go back to our knowledge center and re-watch those webinars, because I don't know how many times I've been to a session or a workshop and you come home and you're like, what exactly was that meaning? So this opportunity gives our members able to go back and re-watch. If you're not a member and you want to access our webinars and workshops, they're $150 a piece. So last year, I think we had 8 different webinars. So, I mean, mathematically, paying your membership for $150 for 1 year. Huge benefits.
Covers that off. So I guess the last thing before we finish is advocacy. So one of the things that this grassroots organization has kind of, I guess, evolved to, or has been, we advocate and we hear the voices, and where and we try to get the ears of policymakers, decision makers in the chambers of government. Does the FNHBA have that reach? Are you at tables to try and influence decisions that have impact on reserve housing?
So we definitely have lots of conversations. I have meetings with many senior officials within the federal government. I think the most important thing, and is what has made FNHPA so successful in our niche area, is we are a non-political organization. We have not gone to the Chiefs in Assembly requesting a resolution. We support, and we're here to support the on-the-ground, in-community grassroots individuals. And our membership is very adamant that we maintain that space, is that it's a network and it's a sport specifically for them and not a political venue.
Yeah, I know that when I joined the board, it was made apparent right from day one that we're non-political. We are here for community and a voice for community. So anyway, I want to thank you for your time, and what I'm hopeful for is that people listening in kind of, hopefully there's synergies that were made from this sector and the sector that we're talking about for the last few days, and the work that they've been done. Hopefully there's a conversation to be had afterwards where can we learn from their model and implement it to what we're doing here. So anyway, that's the reason for our conversation. And I want to thank you for your time, Candace, for your expertise. And hopefully it's not a long drive back to Golden Lake.
There's traffic. It's 40 minutes.
All right. All right. Anyway, on to the next one.
Thank
you.
You heard me. Is that all we had to say? We said we had all to say. Okay. Yeah, so this is, I think we're slowly wrapping up. We're getting to the town hall. So we have another one before the town hall. I'm looking for Mark. I'm not sure that's who I've been looking for. He's around here. He has one right after this one is the town hall. Oh, we have an up and coming new ICI potential student. So we're slowly wrapping up. We have the ICI strategic plan, the preliminary results with Noel McLean. Come on down. You're all by yourself, so we're going to play that song all by yourself.
I like the company.
I just got a lot of company, it's like, it's what people ask me, Fred, hey, do you sing? I says, no. He says, why not? I says, the only time they ask me to sing is when they need res dogs to leave the res. If I sing, they all leave. So, Olichi, we got the 4 pictures. Do you have them? Okay. Okay, we have some technicalities here they're discussing. Okay, while we wait, here's some of the pictures. This is trenching in muskeg. There's 4 pictures. Felici, go through them real quick, but you can keep them up. These are some of the things that they have to pass in dealing with muskeg. Okay. Nobody? Oh, okay. Okay. So we'll keep these up. Go ahead. If you, yeah, come on up.
All right, thank you. Hi, I'm not sure if you have my presentation ready there, and if we have a clicker.
There.
Is this it?
Yep.
Okay.
Don't press delete though.
Okay, I'll try. I'll try not to. While we're waiting, I just wanted to say how inspired I was by Candace. That's wow, talking about filling her cup with some really meaningful work. That was wonderful. So, okay, well, you don't have my presentation. You know what? No sweat. We can just roll with it. I can just talk if that's yeah, and I can share the presentation later. No worries. So thank you very much for inviting me here to your territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe Nation. It's truly a pleasure to be here, and I really appreciate the invitation. The land has always been and continues to be cared for by the Algonquin people, and it means a lot to share this time with you. My name is Noelle McLean. I'm the founder of Rise Results Business Services. We're located in beautiful Unama'ki, otherwise known as Cape Breton Island. Anybody here been to Cape Breton, from Cape Breton? Yay! Awesome. It's truly stunning, and it is one of the 7 traditional districts of Mi'kma'ki. Our team at Rise Results provides services in various ways to help businesses and communities and Indigenous organizations move forward. We provide research, strategy development, marketing, and event management. So we have a core team of 8, and we have 4 amazing Mi'kmaq advisors that are so kind to guide us in our work with Indigenous communities and in Indigenous-led projects. We really value the relationships we've formed with Indigenous communities we work with, and in every project we undertake, we are committed to fostering partnerships that are built on trust and respect and understanding. We've been working with the Indigenous Connectivity Institute since early of 2025. We were engaged to collaborate on a strategic plan to help guide growth, strengthen impact, and help to prepare ICI to become an independent, self-sustaining organization. We fully share the determination for Indigenous people to have full control over their digital futures. We began our work by conducting stakeholder and rights holder engagements to ensure the strategy is developed with to reflect community needs and community aspirations. Surveys helped us to gather a wide range of perspectives, and we also reached out to 14 organizations who work with ICI, including funders, training partners, collaborators in policy and in research. The presentation, or lack thereof, my chat, I sent it to Mark, and he said he was going to give it to, so we can trace it back to the, it's all good. It's all good. I can see, I'm sure Mark has everyone's emails. You can send it out, but the bulk of the information is going to come through the chat, through our chats. Yeah, so we're going to walk through the insights we heard from communities, youth, and leadership teams, lessons learned from other organizations, and the draft priorities for the next 3 to 5 years. At the end, I'm going to put everybody to work. I have some questions to ask, and your voices really matter in helping to shape the final strategic plan for the Indigenous Connectivity Institute. Between May and July, we engaged with the ICI Advisory Committee and leadership team. We did shared discussions and we received written input. I'm going to share the key findings with you. So the first was that there was a strong agreement on the need to build independence and sustainability for ICI. This includes developing a fully Indigenous-led nonprofit, strong representative governance, and securing realistic, long-term, and stable resources. Both groups emphasize strengthening organizational systems and raising visibility. This would include improving internal processes and building a stronger communication strategy to expand awareness of ICI and its work. The need to reach groups that haven't been involved yet as much was also raised. This would include engagement with more elders, remote youth, such as those in Inuit and Northern communities, French-speaking communities, offers urban Indigenous members, and those in the U.S., including Indigenous communities to tribal colleges to workforce development offices. The next finding was the need to build skilled workforce and youth pathways. One of the things that I was so inspired by what Candace was saying is that from that grassroots perspective, really starting with the youth and building those skills. So anyway, sorry, I'm a girl fan now. So the next generation can move into technical policy and leadership roles with the skills and confidence to shape their digital futures. Both groups also highlighted the need to expand partnerships, funding, and also mentioned partners should share the same values and ensure Indigenous leadership in decision-making and staying in control. The last key finding from this group was the importance of culturally grounded training, leadership, and policy advocacy. We're going to move on now to what we heard from youth, and unfortunately, we didn't hear enough from youth. We do need more youth feedback and more youth voices, so we will be working to gather that, but this is what we were able to understand. Youth told us they want real pathways into the sector with stronger voices through a youth circle, advisor roles, and a youth advisory committee. They see themselves as the future workforce and ask for culturally grounded in-community training, mentorship, and leadership opportunities. The advisory committee and leadership team reinforced these points and added more, suggesting digital guardianship roles, more youth entrepreneurship, and mentorship in early outreach in schools. They also noted the need to reach more remote youths through a youth coordinator, social media, and potentially an alumni network. In July of 2025, we did a community survey. Key findings from community members showed that the biggest barriers remain cost, speed, and infrastructure. Over half of respondents said service is unaffordable. Most respondents saw the benefits of Indigenous communities building and managing their own networks. Benefits would include more control over digital futures, stronger sovereignty and self-determination, and more opportunities for jobs and education. They also noted that to make that possible, communities need more training, technical support, and long-term capacity. We also heard about barriers to participating in ICI programs, including travel, caregiving responsibilities, and limited information. There's a call for more outreach to youth and elders, off-reserve members, Inuit and Northern regions, and for training and connections with Indigenous professionals in tech. What does success look like by 2030? That was another question that we asked. So many respondents noted that affordable and reliable internet as a basic utility with community-owned networks and digital sovereignty would be a reflection of success. Priorities noted for the next 5 years included Indigenous-owned networks and infrastructure, digital sovereignty, policy and funding shifts for Indigenous control, youth leadership and training, and values-based partnerships. Comparatively, we conducted research in best practices. We reviewed the First Mile Connectivity Consortium, the Native Public Media, and First Nations Technology Council. I apologize. I did practice all of my pronunciations. The Kukina Network, Tribal Digital Village Network. Our takeaways included strong Indigenous governance being central. When decisions are guided by Indigenous leadership and values, organizations gain trust and stability. Policy advocacy works best when it grows from community practice, starting with local experience and building outward. Diverse funding strengthens stability. Combining grants, partnerships, and earned income makes organizations less dependent on any single source. Growth always takes time and trusted relationships. And workforce and infrastructure often grow together. Networks last longer when training and local jobs are developed alongside technology. Based on the feedback from the advisory committee and leadership team, community survey, and best practice research, we recommended 6 draft strategic priorities for the next 3 to 5 years. So I'm going to go over those with you. The first being governance and independence. Building ICI as a fully Indigenous-led organization with strong governance, its own board, and resources to stand on its own. Priority 2, strengthening community connectivity. Support community-led networks, capacity sharing, and digital sovereignty so communities can shape their own digital futures. The third being advancing policy and advocacy. Indigenous voices are needed to shape the decisions on spectrum, funding, digital equity, inclusion, and affordability. Fair consultation processes and accountability from outside entities working in community must be managed. Number 4, investing in youth, Indigenous youth, and the workforce. preparing youth for technical and policy roles, and investment in clear pathways for training, mentorship, and leadership. Number 5, sustainable funding and partnerships. So by securing sustainable funding and partnerships paired with long-term values-based relationships, ICI can help ensure Indigenous leadership and control. And the final one was communication and awareness. Expanding ICI's story and raising visibility across Canada and the US will help people understand why Indigenous-led connectivity matters. I want to thank you all again for inviting us to present on this important work. We really appreciate being here and sharing this time with you. But now is where I'd like to start asking a few questions so that you can help share your voices. And I did have a volunteer to take some notes. Did he run away? Also, in our presentation, when it gets shared out, there is a QR code. So if you are shy today, but you do want to share your voice, you can use that QR code to go to a feedback form that will help further inform the strategy. And here he comes. Awesome. Okay, so I'll start with the questions and you could start thinking of some answers. Of those 6 priorities I just shared, which are the most needed in your community right now? Do you have those on the presentation? We're going to put them up too. I don't. No, the presentation part is all done now. It's all good, but I'm sure you can email it to participants if that's okay. Yeah. So does anybody have any, I can just go over the 6 things again really quickly, just the topics. So governance and independence, strengthening community connectivity, advancing policy and advocacy, investing in youth in the workforce, sustainable funding and partnerships, and communication and awareness. Are any of those stand out to you as, yes, this is what we need in our community? Indigenous communities, yes, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. What did we miss in those 6 priorities? Oh, come on, we didn't nail it. We must have missed something.
You nailed it.
Awesome. I don't have the questions even on the presentation. Yeah, the questions are just.
But we could put the areas up.
Yeah, yeah. If,
Right.
if you want to do that, I can put those. Yeah.
I'll bring the mic to anyone who has a question. You get to hold a really cool microphone.
Okay, so if you think of anything that we might have missed, please use that QR code that will be up soon and share with us. Yeah. How can ICI keep their partnerships, funding, and policy work guided by Indigenous leadership and priorities? Yes.
Yeah. Maybe we're missing including our American cousins on the tribal the tribal communities. So I don't know if that was included in your work, but we represent both sides of the border. So maybe that's something that's been missing.
Using the relationships and
providing service to tribal communities on the American side.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Screen. We're trying to get it up on screen.
Anything else that we missed? Okay. And then it was, how can ICI keep partnerships, funding, and policy work guided by Indigenous leadership and priorities? I'm sorry, and it's the end of a 3-day conference, and I'm asking you hard questions.
And right after lunch.
Yeah. How can ICI keep partnerships, funding, and policy work guided by Indigenous leadership and Indigenous priorities?
By traveling to community and continuing to go to community and holding open, whether we call them town halls or venues for listening and dialogue in community. And encouraging leadership, not just traditional governance from within the community to participate. So multi-generational participation from within community, including elders, knowledge keepers, knowledge holders, youths from 18 to 35, more youth.
You could have just done the whole thing. That's awesome. Thank you. All right, just a couple more, and then I'll go away.
I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
Kind of like what was presentation where we heard from housing, and there's potential synergies. Not limit ourselves in terms of our network just in this space, but whenever we have opportunity, talk in other spaces, because what we do affects other spaces. So when you have opportunity, be in those rooms, those conferences. Because you never know what kind of partnership might come of that.
I don't write very fast, I'm sorry. But this is awesome information. Okay, I'm going to try to get my presentation going. I'm taking tomorrow off, okay? Just narrative insights, strategic priorities. Okay, so these were the strategic priorities that we okay, as ICI works towards independence, what should strong governance look like? I guess I don't need 2 microphones, so this is going to my head.
First off, as much as possible, Indigenous, led by Indigenous, so Indigenous representation across the board. ICI is very much open to allyship, and we will never say no to allies who support our cause. But in terms of, I guess, representation within the organization, as much Indigenous as possible. I don't mean to offend with that comment, but I think it's important to say.
I would suggest you have a strong governance structure. That means like, what kind of oversight do you have? Who's the executive? Who's part of the council? What kind of power do they have over the executive? And how do they take that into account? And a lot of that could be found in existing structures in organizations and how they make their governance structure. But it would have to be co-designed, I feel, by the youth to draft these priorities so it fits them and their preferences, I suppose.
Thank you. Couldn't figure out who was talking. Thank you so much. Okay, last question. Oh, sorry.
Just coming from a region who deals with connectivity with a mandate to do so, it's important, I think, for ICI to present themselves in a way where, you know, like, for example, you're coming to Quebec, we know well what you're coming as, what your planning to do and all that. So the mandate has to be clear on, do you have a mandate? If not, then explain your purpose well, your values and stuff that links to existing, leaders and stuff like that. So you don't come as a surprise to people, and that's when surprises often turn to closed doors, right? So keep in mind that you have strong existing, like in BC, they have the First Nations Technology Council, which is, amazing. And that exists across Canada, in different forms. So it's a recommendation on ICI moving forward in terms of, not positioning themselves, but just being clear so that it's clear coming into the regions.
That actually you started answering the last question here, is what methods of communication and outreach are most meaningful in communities, and having a strong mandate is a foundation in order to communicate effectively. Anything else to add to that question?
Yeah, to your point, I completely agree, because the last thing you want to do is build walls in an approach right away because there's misunderstanding. So to be open and clear, but I guess our position needs to be, we're here to enhance and support existing and not disrupt.
So like existing policies, existing organizations that are moving this work forward.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't want to be seen as disruptive.
Okay.
Yep. Negative connotations with our name because we're doing harmful things that we are here to support.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Yeah, we're not intervening where we're not wanted.
Well, and Frank, it speaks to what you say speaks to something I've often thought about is we don't want to be doing any work that someone else is doing, right? We need to find our space and do as good of a job as we possibly can within that space so that it supports everyone else who's doing similar work. We all have the same goal, and there's no shortage of work that needs to be done.
I think on the communication piece itself is having a multilingual capacity, if you want to call it that, and being able to have French speakers as well as I don't know how many different languages we can have one person or 500 people speaking 500 languages. But we should have ideally some First Nation, Inuit, or Métis folks who are fluent in a native tongue, so to speak. And we need to continue to ensure that we have gender representation and gender equity within our organization.
I think with this coming from the FMCC world, this group is completely different in my view, because you have an outreach that's way beyond what we do, and your outreach is impressive, and I think you have that strength here. Not only do you have a partner, a funding partner to do the work that you're doing, the FMCC is not in the market to get funding because we got to remain neutral, because when we go to CRTC, we don't want Bell to say that you're supported by this, by that. We're neutral. We're all volunteer based. So this is why we remain neutral. But this is the kind of thing we need to complement, the work we're doing, but other people that are doing. And this is so important. I think your outreach here is really key, I think, to reaching everybody that we need to do. So the scope here is really important.
Tim, that's actually really interesting, because it's one of the things I'd like to talk about when we move into the town hall is how can we not necessarily work together, but work to complement each other because, the forces we're fighting against, this isn't televised, but, the telcos have a lot of lawyers and a lot of resources, and we're up against that in the CRTC and I said, so if we can reinforce each other's messages, I think it would go a long way.
I'm not sure if representative governance structure would fit into what we're talking about in terms of regions, where I'm just trying to wrap my mind around what Tim Whiteduck was saying about being neutral in terms of outreach. But I think it's good that it's representative of the aims and the objects of what we're attempting to do, and how that will look like in terms of carrying out our purpose and what our aim is. And I think, yeah, I would, in a sense, do agree with what's being discussed thus far in terms of also what Mr. Whiteduck is saying. I'm just trying to, how, say, big three organizations or conglomerates fit into all that when we talk about governance. In terms, perhaps partnering with them, with their infrastructure, if you will, in terms of connectivity. So I think maybe that's something that needs to be molded more, I guess, in terms of what we're trying to, or fashioning somewhat in terms of what we mean by governance and independence. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your feedback and your thoughtfulness in answering the questions. This is the QR code that I promised you. I am going to go away now. Thank you all so much for sharing this time with me, and I hope to see you again.
So now we're on the Mark and Phil show.